Well, there we go.
I can't type either, always when I'm,
Why can't I find this stuff that I'm looking for? Yes, I can't, yeah, I don't know what, because they're not here to present, so we're just gonna.
okay. A&R.
Okay, do you want to discuss it?
It's as A&R as an A&R can get. It's got frontage, it's got access, it's a straight, legit A&R. The applicant, I told not to come to present, there's no need, it's,
So just for the record, this is an A&R plan for Beverly
sorry?
Commerce Park LLP for the property located at 50 Bald Street and 181 Elliott Street, also known as the Cummings Center. It's in a zoning district IG. The purpose of this A&R plan is to create a separate lot for the 50 Bald Street subsidized elderly housing project that we, the planning board, approved last year and approved a modification in January of this year. The subsidized elderly housing building needs to be on a separate lot for assessment purposes. The property is in an IG zone, which has no minimum lot area, frontage, or setbacks. Because there is no minimum lot frontage, the minimum lot frontage per Massachusetts general laws is 20 feet. As we know, planning board reviews A&R plans to ensure that the plan meets 3 standards. The lots shown on the plan, and you all should have the plan in your packets. The lots shown on the plan must front on one of 3 ways, 3 types of ways, as specified in General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81L. Obviously, Bald Street is maintained and used as a public way. 50 Balch, a subsidized elderly housing project, obviously fronts on that street. The lots shown on the plan must meet the minimum frontage requirements as specified in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81L. Because there are no frontage requirements, the minimum frontage requirement is 20 feet, and as our plans show us, their frontage is greater than 20 feet. Am I correct?
274 feet.
Okay, it's multiples of 20 feet. Finally, the planning board's determination that the vital access to the lots as contemplated by General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81L exists. And obviously, access exists from the frontage off of Bald Street. Does any member of the planning board have any comments or questions?
there's Wayne.
And Wayne joins us.
Madam Chair, is this an endorsement? It's not an approval, it's an endorsement.
It's an endorsement, right?
Yep.
All right.
Would you like a motion, Madam?
I would love a motion, thank you.
Madam Chair, I move to endorse the subdivision approval not required plan located at 50 Ball Street.
Microphone.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you, Kim. Madam Chair, I move to endorse the subdivision approval not required plan at 50 Ball Street, 181 Elliott Street, the Cummings Center, the applicant Beverly Commerce Park LLP.
Second.
I have a motion by Flannery, a second by Derek Beckwith. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Sarah Bartley.
Yes.
Ellen Flannery.
Yes.
Marcus Glynn.
Yes.
George Gomes.
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis.
Yes.
Wayne Miller.
yes,
Derek Beckwith.
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. That motion passes unanimously. Oh, I took your pen, in case you were wondering. Yes. What? Oh. Did I lose number 2? Oh. Number 2 is a modification request for site plan review number 92-07 for the property located at 311 Cabot Street. The applicant is, and forgive me if I misspeak, Jaspal S. Gill, or Jaspal S. Gill. What is requested is 296 square foot addition to the one-stop market located at 311 Cabot Street. The building entrance will be shifted to the left of the current location, and the existing entrance vestibule will be walled off, resulting in additional floor space. The addition results in the loss of one parking space and therefore reduces the overall number on the site from 38 to 37 parking spaces. The 37 resulting parking spaces meet the parking requirements for the City of Beverly zoning ordinance. Parking on site is for the One Stop Market and the U.S. Taekwondo located at 317 Cabot Street. Is there anybody here on behalf of the applicant? Could you state your name, please, for the record, name and address, please?
Brub Gill, 8 Bailey Ave, Beverly, Massachusetts. Yeah, it's pretty much whatever you just said right there. That's all I was gonna pretty much present. So I don't know if you guys have any questions for me.
So you're going to shift your entrance to the left,
Yes.
and you're going to basically take 296 square, is the 296 already there, or are you going to build it?
Yes and no. So we have like 50 square feet that we're adding on one side of the vestibule.
Yep.
Of the current vestibule. Obviously, you have the vestibule there. Then you have about 240 square feet that would be to the left of that. And then we would, the new vestibule would be included in that
So
240.
if you look up on the screen, your current vestibule is basically right. Your current vestibule is basically this square here, and you're gonna close that off, add a little bit to it, that side of it, is that,
Pretty much, yeah.
and then shift the door.
There's a new vestibule, it looks like, further to the left, right where you just had it, Ken, right? That's the new vestibule right
That's the new
there.
vestibule.
Yeah, okay, this is your current vestibule, yeah, that's it, yep,
Current
okay,
vestibule is pretty much in the middle
yep.
of that.
I love the word vestibule, so I'll say it a few more times, but your current one, there's doors coming in from both sides,
Yes.
right? So you're making a smaller one off to the left, a single entrance.
It would be
into
the same size.
Well, okay.
The new one wouldn't, I mean, it wouldn't have doors to the left, we would just have, front facing.
Just the
or
one,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And the only loss is one parking space.
Yep.
I had a quick question about that, actually, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So it looked on the plan that you're shifting like the handicap spot a little bit to the left, and then is there a new spot that's going in off to the side of the building, around the corner?
That one,
Or is that one sort of already there, but it's being formalized or something along those lines?
pretty much, yeah, I think because we have like dumpsters that we put in, so the original plan, it kind of shifts. So like in between our building and the US Taekwondo building, we kind of shifted some parking spots just
Okay.
based off how we have it, currently.
Okay.
They're not really, formalized or anything.
Okay.
But, a lot of the employees and stuff park there.
Park around the
because
corner there?
Mostly, like no customers are parking there in that area, so.
I mean, it sounded like from everything, like the building inspector said, like they weren't worried about one or two even. They had plenty of space there, so.
Any other questions? Comments?
I'm comfortable, Madam Chair.
Okay, this is modification, first determination is whether it's minor or not minor. If it's not minor, as you all know by now, we need to set a public hearing. If it's minor, then we can go ahead and vote on the merits of this. Ms. Flannery?
Madam Chair, I deem the modification at request to site plan review number 92-07 at 309 and 311, 317 Cabot Street as minor.
Second?
I think you wanted to say you moved, that we
I moved,
find it,
what
because
did-
you deemed it.
Deem it, oh, I deemed it already.
I mean, I know
Forgive
you
me,
are the
Madam
queen,
Chair.
you are the queen, so,
Madam Chair, forgive me.
no, I'm teasing you, it's fine.
I'll second it no matter what she did.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Comments on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
Marcus Glenn?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis?
Yes.
Wayne Miller?
yes,
Derek Beckwith, I'm sorry. Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Motion passes 8-0. Thank you very much.
We have to vote to
That's the,
accept it.
yeah, that was
Oh,
the, still now we have to vote to
You're
accept
right,
it.
you're right,
Would you
you're
like me
right.
to make the
I'm
motion?
like getting ahead of myself.
Instead of deeming, would you like me to move?
Please,
Motion?
move.
Madam Chair, I move to grant the modification request to site plan review number 92-07 at 309 and 311-317 Cabot Street. with the following condition. Number one, that all previous conditions of approval from the planning board decision dated February 27, 2008 are still applicable, including conditions contained in the comment letters submitted by various department heads, boards, and commissions in condition number 9 in the above referenced decision, which is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference.
Second?
Thank you. I have a motion by Ms. Flannery, a second by Mr. Beckwith. Are there any questions on the motion? Any comments on the motion? Hearing none, I will once again call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
Marcus Glynn?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis? Wayne Miller?
yes,
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Helen Hutchinson? Yes. Thank you very much. You're all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our agenda item number 3 is up next. Modification request for site plan review number 164-24 and special permit 190-23 for the property located at 397 Cabot Street. The applicant is Janik Companies LLC, care of Alexander and Femino, 1 School Street, Beverly, Mass. Counselor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just one quick thing. Mr. Clausen correctly pointed out that we don't need to modify the special permit because the reason we needed a special permit is that this parking lot originally had 4 spaces, and it will now have 2 spaces, and the special permit we were seeking has to do with any parking lot of 3 or more spaces. So we are no longer subject to that, and I would respectfully withdraw without prejudice that that special permit request for modification.
Okay. Okay. So moved. Somebody moved it?
So moved.
All right. So I want to make sure everybody understands. The special permit, in essence, becomes moot, right?
Yep.
So there's no need to modify the special permit. It was submitted by accident, so Mr. or Attorney Alexander is asking to withdraw that as part of what the application is here tonight. So,
Can I clarify, Madam Chair?
sure.
The special permit was for a narrower parking aisle, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So now that doesn't matter because we only have 2 spots down there, so that,
Presuming that this passes.
sure, yeah.
I wonder if we should hold off on voting,
Yeah, maybe.
hold off voting for the withdrawal of that part of it
Yeah.
until,
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
To answer George's question, if it becomes a two.
Then you're not subject to
You're
the
not
two-way
subject to
aisle.
design standards for parking and loading areas because it's not more than 3 parking spaces.
Okay. At risk of getting slightly ahead of, why are you changing it? What's the reason for the
Question.
change?
So that's what I'm about to say. Okay, thank you. So we're looking for a modification of the site plan review. So this, everybody see this? This is a copy of the plan. You can see it up there. And so this is like a lot that has like a clown hat on top of it or something, like that. And I've colored it in here to show you what it looks like. Okay, so that particular part of the parcel, it had 2 of the spaces on it. So it turns out, I did not do the title on this. It was done by another attorney. It turns out we do not have good title to that property. In fact, nobody has good title to that property because the city of Beverly thinks we do, and everybody who's owned it has paid taxes on it since 1972. And what happened was the square there was owned by Service Cleaners.
Yeah.
The
Triangle.
triangular count hat on top there was deeded in, so the owners were Service Cleaners. They bought the square piece in 1956. In 1972, they bought the triangular piece in the back, and and the city has forever forth carried that as part of the thing. But unfortunately, because, and Madam Chair, you may have come across this before, and Mr. Gomes in real estate, because it was deeded at two separate times, when service cleaners deeded out, whomever did the deed forgot to include the clown's hat on top there.
You're kidding.
No, and it's what's called a gore. That was in 1980, so keep in mind, Service bought the square in 56, bought the clown's hat in 72, then deeded out in 1981, just the square. Forgot to do the triangle.
The triangle piece.
Ever since that time, it's been deeded now, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're the fifth owner that's the way it's been deeded, and it has not been. So technically, it's that triangle is still owned by Service Cleaners. That particular corporation was involuntarily dissolved in 1990. There is a procedure that you can do. You can revive a dissolved corporation for the sole purpose of deeding out a piece of real estate like this that people forgot about. However, the problem is we could not find a single surviving person. The last surviving person was in Florida. We hired a private investigator. She could find no evidence that this person had ever died, had ever done so we did a global search. We can't find a person that we could contact to sign off on a revival. So, in other words, we don't own that property. So, fortunately, so those two spaces, we don't have good title to. Fortunately, Mr. Mancini, who's here tonight with us, owns another piece of property at 386 Rantoul Street, which is where the old Subway shop is. And that's got tons of parking on it, and it's presently vacant. So that under the Beverly ordinances, you can arrange to get some of your parking so long as it's from another property, so long as you either own it or you enter into a binding contract with the person who does own it to pick up the two spaces. And that's by right. It's not a special permit. So by right, you can do that. This property at 397 is within 500 feet. You can see we had George Van Boris, who's here with us tonight, draw the distance as the crow flies, which is the way the ordinance has it. So we do have the two spaces within 500 feet, and so that's what we're seeking to do.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
What happens to those two spots should the applicant decide to sell, let's call it the Subway parcel?
Yes.
Sell that parcel?
It'd be subject to that, this
Okay.
agreement. And so what we would do is, it's going to state on the decision, right, that this is encumbering 386.
Yeah.
And we'll have a marginal reference on 386's deed that makes it clear that,
Okay.
that it is encumbered by that.
So it, in essence, travels with the property?
Correct.
Unless and until the owner of the other one released it, right?
Until 397 release, you probably
That's right.
would need the planning board to sign off on that as well.
Okay.
Okay, so that's basically it. I do think it is a minor modification. Everything about this will stay the same. That the design, the landscaping, the parking area, except for the triangular piece, and so it is a pretty, and probably in many ways an improvement, actually, because those two spaces were not ideal anyways. The ones that are going to be down in the new place will be much better.
Yeah, the only
material change, I guess, for lack of a better word, is some of the location of stormwater management facilities kind of moved around because they had to keep it on their property. Engineering took a look at it. They have no issue. There's no problem. Everything's the same.
Okay, good,
Yeah. Good point.
yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So is this being built as condos or or are they rental units?
I don't, is a decision been made, John, are you going, the 2 units, will they be used? They'll probably be rentals. Probably be rentals. He owns a bunch of rental property down in that area.
I'm just thinking that if they're rental units, that, you know, it would make sense to me that the location be spelled out in the lease for the tenants so that they know that they have right to them, not just a sort of a handshake and here it is. And also, are these going to be designated in the parking area specifically and signed for solely the residents of the building?
Right, they are, yes.
It'll be marked off specifically for that purpose.
Okay. And I know that you had a question.
A follow-up, Madam Chair, if I could?
Of course.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Of the 2 parking spaces at 397, could we condition that one belongs to each unit?
Yeah, sure, that's
And
the
then sec-
intention, so that would
And the
make
second
that-
space would be at the old subway?
Correct, yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
George?
I don't even know if you can do this. Is there a world where you want to keep that special permit just in case you get the title back to the triangular lot? Is that what you're withdrawing you're withdrawing the
well,
modification? You still have that special permit, I suppose, right?
Yeah, we just go back to the regular old special permit, because I'm just requesting a withdrawal.
Modification.
of
Withdraw the modification.
Yeah.
So you still have that special permit in case
Yeah.
you do track down someone and,
Right,
Yeah, there's nothing to modify for the special permit because it's no longer even required based on this plan. So the special permit, if, it would
Is still
basically
active.
expire after 2 years if,
expires after
Yeah.
2 years.
it would expire still.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So, Madam Chair, does
Yes.
that mean during a motion, we wouldn't reference the special permit at all? We'd only make a motion solely for the
Site plan review.
the site plan itself, and then not the special permit? And that would keep the special permit.
Well,
I think, well,
But you're
Ellen-
still, you're still going to withdraw, we still have to have a separate motion to withdraw the request for a modification of the special permit. So there'll be,
Modification of the, withdrawal of the modification, not of, exactly,
Yeah.
not
And
the
Ellen, I
special
think already
permit
made
itself.
that motion, so we should, Ellen made that motion already.
but nobody seconded.
Fair, okay, yep.
Well, so I agree with you that first we should vote on the modification of the site
Right.
plan.
So
Again,
there's
Special permit.
three
good at this.
motions here. One is obviously the determination of minor or not minor. If it's determined to be minor, then a vote on the merits. And then if the vote on the merits is in favor of the request, then the motion to accept the withdrawal without prejudice. Okay?
Doesn't the major minor only apply to the special permit? That doesn't, that applies to the site plan as well? Sorry, okay.
So who wants to take a stab at it?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Flannery.
Move the modification request to site plan review number 164-24 at 397 Cabot Street as minor.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gomes. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
Marcus Glynn?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis? Yes. Wayne Miller?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. So we've deemed it to be a minor modification. Who wants to take this, offer a motion on the merits of the matter?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to accept the modification request, approve the modification request to site plan review number 164-24, 397 Cabot Street, applicant Janet Companies, LLC?
Did we want to add the conditions?
Sorry,
That
yep.
condition?
Conditions, yep.
with the following conditions. Number one, all previous conditions of approval from the planning board decision dated March 22nd, 2024 are still applicable, except for condition number one, including conditions contained in the comment letters submitted by various department heads, boards, and commissions, and condition number two in the above referenced decision, which is attached hereto and accompanied herein by reference. Number two, the project shall be constructed in accordance with the plans entitled Site Plan Modification, Existing Conditions, 397 Cabot Street, Beverly, Massachusetts, prepared by George J. Zamboris, 17 Noble Hill Road, Beverly, Massachusetts, 01915, prepared for Yannick Company. Is it Yannick or Janik? I should know. Janik, sorry. LLC, 10 Vernon Street, Stoneham, Mass. 02180, sheet 1 of 4, scale 1 inch to 30 feet, dated March 25th, 2024. B, site plan modification, proposed conditions, 397 Cabot Street, Beverly, Massachusetts, prepared by George J. Zamboris, 17 Noble Hill Road, Beverly, Mass. 01915, prepared for Janet Company LLC, 10 Vernon Street, Stoneham, Mass. 02180, sheet 2 of 4, scale 1 inch to 20 feet, dated March 25th, 2025. C, plan proposed off-site parking, 397 Cabot Street, Beverly, Massachusetts, prepared by George J. Zamboris, 17 Noble Hill Road, Beverly, Mass. 01915, prepared for Janet Company LLC, 10 Vernon Street, Stoneham, Mass. 02180, sheet 3 of 4, scale 1 inch to 30 feet, dated March 25th, 2025. D, site plan, proposed conditions, 397 Cabot Street, Beverly, Massachusetts, prepared by George J. Zamboris, 17 Noble Hill Road, Beverly, Massachusetts, 01915, prepared for Janet Company LLC, 10 Vernon Street, Stoneham, Mass. 02180, sheet 4 of 4, scale as noted, dated March 25th, 2025. Number three, the 2 parking spaces that are located at 386 Cabot Street for the use of residents at 397 Cabot Street shall be clearly marked that they are solely for the use of the residents at 397 Cabot Street. In the event of any future development plans for the property at 386 Cabot Street, these parking spaces must always remain on-site and be accessible to the residents at 397 Cabot Street, even during any constructions that may take place at 386 Cabot Street. The parking spaces can move location on the 386 Cabot Street property if a development plan is submitted to the City of Beverly Planning Department. The parking spaces will need to be clearly noted on any future development plans for 386 Cabot Street that they are for the use of the residents of 397 Cabot Street and cannot count toward the parking requirements for a future development at 386 Cabot Street. And then I guess 4, that the 2 on-site spaces should be deeded 1 to each unit, and then the 2 off-space should be deeded 1 to each unit, per our conversation earlier this evening.
Maybe not deeded, maybe
Reserved?
assigned.
Assigned, yes.
So, yeah.
I have a motion by Mr. Gomes, seconded by Ms. Flannery. Is there discussion on the motion? I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
Marcus Glynn?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis? Yes. Wayne Miller?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. The last one is the withdrawal of the request for modification of the special permit. Did you say without prejudice or with? Without.
So moved?
There we go. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Beckwith. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Once again, I will call the roll. Sarah Bartley.
Yes.
Ellen Flannery.
Yes.
Marcus Glynn.
Yes.
George Gomes.
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis. Yes. Wayne Miller.
Yes.
Derek Beckwith.
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson. Yes. I think that wraps that up.
Great, thank you very much, appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Certainly. Okay, I'd welcome a motion to recess for public hearings, please.
So moved. I move that we recess from public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second, please? Seconded by Flannery. Sarah Bartley.
Yes.
Flannery.
Yes.
Marcus Glynn.
Yes.
George Gomes. Yes. Nathaniel Lewis. Wayne Miller.
Yes.
Derek Beckwith.
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. All right, we are now in public hearing. Oops, wrong one. I know. Let me just, first public hearing for the evening is the continued public hearing for site plan review number 168-24, special permit number 201-25 for the property, inclusionary housing number 30-24 for the property located at 0 Trask Lane, The applicant is Corcoran Trask Lane LLC, and it is to the attention of Peter Mahoney, Executive Vice President, and you need to read a Mullen statement, correct?
Yeah, I have to read into record the Mullen Rule Statements, which is a certification of evidence review in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23D, pertaining to the petitions entitled Site Plan Review Number 168-24 and Inclusionary Housing Number 30-24 at 0 Trask Lane, Corcoran Trask Lane LLC. Attention, Peter Mahoney, EVP. I hereby certify that I'm a member of the Beverly Planning Board and have been absent from no more than a single session of the above referenced hearing at which testimony or other evidence was received. I also certify that I have examined all evidence received at the missed session, including an audio or video recording of the missed session or a transcript thereof as set forth in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 23D, and accepted by the City of Beverly on September 18th, 2006. Materials reviewed are Trask Lane Beverly Design Review Board presentation dated February 9, 2025. The Commons at Trask Lane Beverly, Massachusetts plant booklet dated September 30th, 2024. Traffic engineering peer review dated December 19, 2024, prepared by Vanass and Associates, Inc., and BevCam recording of January 15, 2025 Planning Board meeting. The date of the session missed was January 15, 2025, and this is signed and dated February 12, 2025 by both Ellen Hutchinson and Nathaniel Lewis. Also, certification of evidence review in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23D, pertaining to the petitions entitled Site Plan Review Number 168-24 and Inclusionary Housing Number 30-24 and Special Permit Number 201-25, 0 Trask Lane, Corcoran Trask Lane LLC. Attention, Peter Mahoney, EVP. I hereby certify that I'm a member of the Beverly Planning Board and have been absent from no more than a single session of the above referenced hearing at which testimony or other evidence was received. I also certify that I've examined all evidence received at the missed session, including an audio or video recording of the missed session or a transcription thereof, as set forth in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 23D, and accepted by the City of Beverly on September 18, 2006. Materials reviewed are the special permit application and supplemental materials, special permit parking layout plan prepared by Util Architecture and Urban Design, 115 Kingston Street, Boston, Massachusetts, 02111, prepared for Corcoran Trask Lane LLC, 100 Grandview Road, Suite 205, Braintree, Massachusetts, 02184, 4 sheets, scale 1 inch equals 20 feet, dated September 30th, 2024. Revised March 5th, 2025. Parking demand assessment prepared by Green and Peterson, Inc., dated December 17, 2024. Updated parking demand assessment prepared by Green and Peterson, Inc., dated March 5, 2025. And the BevCam recording of March 12, 2025 Planning Board meeting. Date of session missed was March 12, 2025, signed and dated April 9, 2025 by Derek Beckwith. And real quick, while we're talking about Mullen Rule, notice that only one session can be missed. And the longer this continues, the more we risk of possible more than one session being missed by a planning board member. So I just want to point that out and keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. And just in case anybody's wondering what all of that meant, it meant this, that at one point, Derek and I and Nate
Yep.
not George, sorry, Nate, missed one of our meetings when this was presented. The Mullen certification indicates that we all went back, we watched the
Recording?
thank you, the recording of this, we looked at all the documentation filed, so in essence, we make up for having been absent that night. With that being said.
Good evening, members of the board. Miranda Smasco on behalf of Corcoran Trask Lane. Real quickly, the last time we were here, we presented, I think for the entire meeting, it was devoted to the special permit application. The team presented our application. We heard from members of the public and from members of the board, and the meeting was continued until this evening. So we are happy to answer any additional questions that board members have, and to see where this goes.
All right. Are there questions for Attorney Samasco or her team? Derek?
Madam Chair, apologies for missing the session. I was in a moving car going through Buffalo down into Pennsylvania towards Ohio, and the coverage was spotty. But I appreciate the opportunity to ask some questions. There are a couple of different things. I had some questions about snow removal, but I also know that you made a presentation, I believe, to parking and traffic about some of those things. So I'm expecting that you're planning on doing that same presentation to us this evening? Or if not, I'm going to ask you to.
We certainly can. We
Okay.
have it as part of our site plan review. But,
Okay.
and we can do that this evening as part of the special permit as well.
Okay, great.
Prepared to do that.
Well, I wanted to sort of back up. I don't know, Ken, if it's possible to pull up the, at least the baseline of the two different sections of,
I don't know what's that.
Can you show,
yeah, these maps here. Yeah,
That one right there.
is it
that's
CO2?
correct, that's
Yep.
it. There we go. Because my questions,
I gotta get to Wayne.
yeah, I'm gonna fill it in and with some narrative in the meantime. So, you know, I understand that you're looking at, 1.7 ratio at,
1.6.
pardon me?
1.6.
1.6, but
Well-
it was presented,
It's been amended to 1.7.
Oh,
Yeah.
and did you amend the actual request application for it to 1.7?
Yes.
Okay. And, we're at 748 spaces for 440 units. But having, in the past, lived in apartment complexes, and actually been someone who had to look for a different space every time and jockey and things like that. So I've been there a little bit. And, it strikes me that 440 units, 748 parking places, this is as big as some small towns in Western Mass or in other parts of the country. This is pretty darn big. And I was very surprised, actually, in listening to the discussion from last meeting and looking at the plans, that there wasn't more advanced planning done. It seems like it's going to be an exercise, and we'll see what happens when we build it and sort of go from there in terms of things like delivery trucks, moving vans. We have 6 buildings. We have, how many units per building on average for the properties? The
I
turnover
don't
is going to be, hopefully you won't have a high turnover rate, but it's 440 units. We're going to have moving trucks coming in, weekly anyway. We're going to have, sometimes when it's multiple, first week of the month and things like that. We're going to have hundreds of deliveries being made because of online shopping and UPS and Prime. We have now, because this is the opposite of transit-oriented housing, because there is no transit except automobiles to get back and forth. They're powered by gas. This is the opposite, so we're gonna have lots of traffic here that we're gonna deal with. And I know we're talking about traffic later, but I'm just really surprised that as I look at this, there are 3 loading spots. Where is this? This is sheet C2. The 30-foot long parking spaces between, I'm trying to figure out what the,
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
They're up on the screen, Derek, if you see them moving.
Okay, yeah. So are those delivery truck, moving truck areas supposed to manage all 6 buildings?
So I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to just explain one thing first, which is that as we explained at the first public hearing for this, we view this special permit request not as approval of a particular plan, but as a parking ratio, so we can go back and make the refinements to the site plan that you are pointing out, Mr. Beckwith, that we heard, that we saw in Mr. Clausen's staff report, and that Parking and Traffic have also asked. In fact, when we get to the site plan portion of the discussion, we've already started making those revisions. But before we get there, we are looking for a determination as to the parking ratio that the board wants to see. That's number one. Number two, Corcoran, they manage 13,000 units throughout the region. They've been doing this for 50 years. I know we've all had experience living in apartment complexes. I know they vary. I know it depends a lot on who's managing it and the experience they have. And once we get to a place where we know what our design is going to be, I think that we will be better able to inform and answer the board's questions. But this has been somewhat of a moving target on the parking, and that's the explanation for some of the, I'm not going to say blanks, but the moving pieces that you're pointing out. I also think, finally, that, you know, one of our main points is that we believe this site is overparked. It is overparked at 2. We think it is overparked at 1.7. The number we thought would work, that was also a conservative number, was 1.6. And at those numbers that we're talking about now, 1.7, we anticipate that there's going to be a high degree of turnover and a high degree of vacancy during variable hours, and that the moving vans and the delivery, which, you know, I think Tim and Peter can tell you what they told me anecdotally, which is, Miranda, if we mark a space for Amazon delivery or Uber Eats, they don't park there. They park wherever they can. And that's, and especially in a site here where we have so much on-street parking or on-drive parking, it's somewhat we're chasing tails to some degree by planning out delivery spaces. That's the thinking. Now, that said, the final plan will have designated move-in spaces or loading van spaces for Site A and Site B. And we can show you those. We can show you those now. We can show you those when we do the site plan. But the point is that we're trying to get to the parking number so we can finalize the plan.
Okay, so I hear you, and I appreciate you're presenting your case. Just that when I look at these things, and, you know, I understand that I haven't, you know, I don't have 13,000 rental units under, you know, that sort of thing. I haven't built these, I haven't managed these. But at the same time, I don't think in Beverly, we've had a 440-unit complex go in with only one access point, and the need, a higher need for motorized transportation for the residents of a location than in anything that I can think of. I mean, we've been primarily doing transit-oriented housing, which is terrific. I love transit-oriented housing. And, you know, every time we're doing it, we're within 500 feet of the garage, and so we'll be able to parking there, and you know, all that sort of stuff. Here, we don't have any, you know, saving grace except the prediction for what's going to happen. And I understand that in looking at the numbers, you know, some of them are from 2015, well before the pandemic, high traffic areas for sure. I can tell you from my years, and I've had 40 years in corporate high-tech companies, that the trend right now in Massachusetts is to move from remote work to hybrid work, and that the impact is starting to be seen in traffic, and the people needing to be able to, at least several days a week or a couple of days a week, be on the move. So what we had been working from, the last 5 years is changing, it's evolving. So that's why I'm asking these questions, because I personally don't think that building something or looking at this large project and then coming in with 1.7, that really equates to something that's closer to 1.55, because we're not doing the set-aside space for deliveries and other ancillary traffic that's going to be on site, visitors, et cetera, because they can only get there with motorized transport. So, to me, I know that there are lots of experts, but you're looking at, existing sites that don't really map to what this is. This is a different animal, I personally
Well,
think.
respectfully,
So,
we mapped to the, I know you weren't here, we mapped to Folly Hill, Cherry Hill, and Apple Village, as well as other like-sized developments.
But I also think the demographics of the populations in those locations are different than the population that you're going for. And, I personally think the numbers are, while on paper, you look through it, the more I look at it, the more I'm thinking that it would be much better to plan within this 1.7, for example, what other spaces are going to be needed that don't count towards resident parking, that count towards the other type of traffic that you've said in your narrative and in your answers, the ride share traffic coming up, et cetera, that is going to be taking place here. There's no other way to get there. We're not going to get bike messengers. We're not going to get people hopping on the train. They're going to have to get to the train by using a car, primarily, unless you're doing a 12-hour shuttle every day, which I hope you end up doing, But anyway, I just have questions. If you're saying that you don't have plans that show the parking set-asides for handicap parking at each of the entrances, I know that there's some. I don't know, and for each of the buildings for deliveries and, the mail areas. Are there mail areas in each building?
Yes?
Okay, they're gonna be delivery trucks running up. These guys are they're gonna bolt out, and they're gonna leave their truck, if there's not a space for them, they're gonna leave their truck parked in front of things, and we all know these guys are timed. So I just would like to see more spaces on here to meet your quota, because I don't think it's fair to count those in there.
Peter Mahoney, John Corcoran Company. So just a few things, and I totally hear where you're coming from. Rebecca can speak to the numbers. It was part of our presentation. Visitors, all the other type of users that come onto these sites, that's calculated into the ITE numbers. And so that's one piece, the ITE numbers that we are well exceed the suggested parking ratio based on the manual. Linfield Commons is our best example that we own. We've owned it for almost 20 years. 200 units up on Route 1 behind Herb Chambers dealership, one way in, one way out, no transit, 1.65, I think. Never a problem. And then finally, we're here to, we're obviously want to build the apartments. We're here to rent the apartments. And if it doesn't work, we're making a giant investment here. That's not good for us, obviously, if we've built something that doesn't function. So I don't want to say distrust us, but we're designing what we think will function properly for our residents and our staff to make 440 households, function in today's world. And then obviously the world changes. 10 years ago, we wouldn't have all this Amazon drop-offs and ride shares. So we will, some of our sites have pivoted to accommodate that. And then finally, Miranda's point, we're happy we can pull them up here, I think. We have started to advance the thinking. We believe it's a site plan approval type of question, proving out to you, that we can accommodate the deliveries, for example. And I don't know, Ken, if you have the plans that show that, yeah. So we can share those now, but I just wanted to be responsive to, kind of our experience on a project of this size.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The thing that just surprised me is that and I know that you're waiting for the approval for us to say, great, here you go, here's your special permit, 1.6 or 1.7, there you go. And then you're magically gonna show us how it works. Usually when we do a special permit for parking, it's the other way around, and we get to see what the plan is ahead of time, rather than, here's pretty close to what we're gonna do, it's gonna change.
Yep.
That's my feeling. I'd rather see something much more concrete.
And then the last thing I'd say, I'm not aware of an apartment community built in the state in the last 20 years that has two spaces, that is using 2 spaces per unit. We've certainly not gone above 1.65. This will be the highest parking ratio we've built in my time in 20 years at Corcoran.
Well, I wasn't saying 2.0. What I was saying is that even at 1.7, I don't see how you're gonna do 1.7 with what you're talking about without also
Yep.
having these other things in that don't count. They're not resident spaces. It's not 1.7 including all of your deliveries, all of your other stuff, without any set-asides for those. I just don't think that that's fair to the residents. I don't think it's fair for the people who are there, and I don't think it's an accurate portrayal of what's going to be needed. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, understand.
Madam Chair.
George?
Just one thing real quick on that, and so, when you calculate out the 2.0 parking spaces per unit that's required for zoning, that includes all of those types of spaces, those rideshare spaces, those delivery spaces. So what we are proposing is reducing that number down to 1.7 spaces per unit. We've done the analysis, we've shown what we anticipate. We're actually only anticipating a little bit less than 1.4 spaces per unit being occupied during the peak time period. That's the peak overnight time period, and that includes, visitors, that includes delivery vehicles that would be coming in. And that is based on data that was collected post-pandemic, not pre-pandemic, that we're estimating those numbers. So we do really feel that this site has more than enough parking on it with the 1.7. The other component to go along with that is that we did commit to doing a post-occupancy monitoring study of the parking at Parking and Traffic Commission meeting, so that we would go out and check after the development is constructed to verify that the parking is meeting the needs. And if at that time we find, delivery vehicles don't have enough spaces, they can't find a spot, and they're blocking, we can certainly change the striping at that time to adjust. But we also have the ability to expand the parking. So Site A has sort of an off-site parking lot that we previously were showing a parking garage. When we went down to 1.7 spaces per unit, that became a surface lot. So we have the ability to add another 40 parking spaces there, which would bring us to about 1.8 spaces per unit by adding another level onto that garage, like we had previously shown there. If the occupancy study or the post-occupancy study does show that there's a need for it.
Okay, thank you. The final question I'd have on it goes to the convenience store, if that becomes a commercial location, hopefully that works out, of having the 4 designated spots there, actually not designated, but being shared spots. Those are prime spots, the spots that are right up against the building itself. I mean, that's where everyone's gonna wanna park. And it just seems that not having designated, at least during the hours that the convenience store is open, to me, does not make sense, because then it's gonna deter people from actually going there, because it's not gonna have, easy access like a normal convenience store would, of being in and out. So that didn't make sense to me either.
And we touched on that briefly at the last meeting, and we touched on it again in parking and traffic, and Corcoran has agreed that the spaces could be signed during the day as convenience store
Oh,
parking
okay.
spaces.
I missed
Yeah.
it. Okay.
George?
I feel like sometimes you see these design schematics and they're like Rorschach tests, and you can read in what you will on them. I share your concern about the sort of not transit accessible, auto-oriented nature of this site, but I also believe the evidence, and I'm not the only one that believes the evidence. If I'm not mistaken, the city's peer reviewer believed the evidence on the 1.6. I guess I had a question for you, Ken, as a professional planner. Like, what is your take on this back and forth? Am I wrong? Like, our peer reviewer agreed with the 1.6. Am I right?
Yeah, he did. Is that correct? He's not, I don't think he's on yet.
I didn't realize he was joining tonight.
He
I was
was
just reading the
going
back
to-
and forth in the most recent
He's not on yet.
response from Ms. Brown. I believe it was sort of captured in the back and forth on that.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can confirm that Jeff did agree
Thank you.
in his peer review with the 1.6 that was originally proposed.
It is, you know, I pushed Ms. Brown maybe 2 meetings ago on the sort of where the ITE estimates come from, and, you know, I guess traditionally, parking estimates have been a little bit of voodoo economics, and I think they've become a little bit maybe better in recent years, but it's true for decades that we've overparked, and our city's zoning has increasingly, you know, recognized that, and we've embraced lower zoning ratios, generally in more transit-oriented spaces of the city, admittedly, but it's also been fairly well studied across the nation that we're overbuilding parking, and I guess you know, I do find the argument sort of convincing that, you know, from the applicant's perspective, it does them no good to not provide the parking that the people who are going to be living in these buildings are going to need. And it feels a little bit to me like we're trying to have it both ways, right? So people are commuting more, but also we need more, you know, delivery spaces. Those are in conflict with each other. If people are driving more to work, then there are going to be more spaces that are available during the day, right? And the same thing with the on-site convenience store, right? That's going to be patronized more likely during the day, I suppose, right? You know, like these things are sort of in conflict with one another to an extent. So, you know, I guess I said Rorschach test because I believe, like, you know, you can read into it the facts that you want to believe. We have experts, and we have also then, the city has retained experts to study these issues for a reason, right? And if the experts that the city has retained are saying 1.6 makes sense, and we're looking at 1.7, I guess I don't know why we're arguing with it at this point. It seems to me like it makes sense. So that's all. That wasn't a question. I apologize. That was more of a statement.
Madam Chair.
Please.
So I get your point. I really do, and that was part of the thinking I was going through. I think that the site is unique. I know that, you know, Linfield Commons maybe. I don't know that much about the site or whatever, but I don't think that this is the average type of site in looking at ITE or other statistical places that this is a different animal than we're normally talking with. And we have a zoning, you know, that was put in years ago, I know, for 2 spaces. We're talking about reducing it. I'm not even talking about not reducing it. What I'm talking about is reducing it, but also making sure that there are adequate delivery, loading, and different areas in each one of these different areas, and that when it gets designed with the number of spaces to meet that 1.7, for example, outside of that. That means that it's going to take more parking real estate, perhaps, than is in these plans that we see, but you know, probably not up to the 2.0. And then the other thing that did hit, and, you know, this is just, we live in a capitalist society, and capitalism has fueled every company I've worked for, not the nonprofits typically, but the companies. And the whole idea too, that parking in the garages may actually have a cost associated with it in the supply and demand, in the decision-making piece. When it's a little chaotic outside, that prompts people to go inside, you know? And so, to me, it's also, you know, we need to take care of the people who are gonna be, you know, not able to afford a parking fee at the same time that we're, you know, the people who are able to avoid it on the inside. It's just, to me, it's part of the supply and demand thing. If you can avoid all the problems by peacefully parking inside, that's worth my $200 extra a month. And if we're building something like this, I'd just as soon make sure that there's some democratization of this, and that everyone has a good experience in parking, and that we, as a board, aren't part of shrinking it down to make it difficult for that to happen.
Okay.
And granting a special permit. To me, it's a special permit.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes.
So I take your points. I think, so the comment from VAI is that they support the proposal to reduce the overall parking supply for the project to a constructed parking supply of 1.60 parking spaces per unit. That's what this special permit originally was. Now it's 1.7. So that's 44 spaces or whatever, right? Like we're, what?
I'm doing math in my head.
I think I'm right. It is 44. Thank you. So that's the comment we've gotten from our peer reviewer. So if you're worried about that buffer zone for people visiting the site, for, you know, deliveries, et cetera, it seems to me like we've gotten that even going from the special permit with what the expert opinion that we've got as a board from someone that the city has hired, the city that is clearly not particularly friendly to this project, frankly, right? So we're starting from that point. And I guess the second point on the pricing situation, we price a lot of things in this society that are, you know, valuable commodities. And I reject the view that parking is a public good that should be provided to all free of cost, right? That's how we've gotten into the situation where we have an auto-normative society, frankly. If we are looking to decrease driving, if we're looking to, you know, sort of, you know, make people face the costs of what they're dealing with, then I think pricing parking is exactly what we should be doing as a society, frankly. And anyway, I just...
If there's one site that I wouldn't agree with you on, that it would be this site, because this is a higher need for transportation.
And I take your point, but we're not forcing anybody to live there, you know? Everyone is...
I kind of think we're moving into
Okay.
some philosophical, I think you make very good points. I think you both make good points, but I kind of think we're moving into a philosophical discussion that maybe is appropriate for a bar afterwards. Instead of this. I hope you don't mind.
No, it's fine.
Did you have something?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add was the number that was increased from 1.6 to 1.7. The reason that the Parking and Traffic Commission wanted to move it up to 1.7 was to more match their Linfield Common site, which is at 1.65. So that's why it went from 1.6 to 1.7.
Other comments? I have a couple of questions, I think, for Rebecca, if you don't mind. The type of law I practice, I look at data all the time. So I think you've probably answered these last couple of meetings, but I just want to make sure in my own head I've got this straight. The first question I have is, the ITEs for the LUCs are for housing that is located in a general urban/suburban area. Did they not have it available for suburban area only?
They did not. They group it together, but they do separate it, which was one thing that I wanted to point out in regards to Mr. Beckwith's comment. They do separate it by whether or not it has access to transit. And so the rates that we used were for those that do not have access to transit.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
A few moments ago, you said, correct me if I'm wrong, that you thought the rate could go as low as 1.4?
Yes, so based on when we looked at the Folly Hill Apartments, Cherry Hill condos, and Apple Village, the rate that was experienced there, it was about 1.35, but you want to have your parking supply be 10% higher, basically, than what your parking demand in the peak time period is. So that's why we say it could be as much as low as 1.4.
Okay, so if I'm looking at this chart that was provided in the report, it's page 17.
Yep. Ken, do you want to put that up? So it's in the special
Which
permit
report, Madam
slides.
Chair, which report is dated?
I have so many, I think it's from the December 17th.
The December 17th or the
Oh, the March 5th.
March 5th?
March 5th. I have the March
no,
5th
I-
one.
Yeah, it should be in that one.
No, it's right here, December 17th. I'm not crazy.
Do you want to use that one or do you want to use the update?
Yeah, the March one is updated. It has a few more data points in it.
You know what, I might not have,
Give it here. Don't
I
you-
might not have worked on that one, so
That's the
if
one.
I have egg on my face,
Yeah,
I'll be the
it's
first to admit
up a
it.
little more. Keep scrolling up.
It's a problem of too much.
Right
paper.
there. That's the one. Yep.
Okay, I did see that, and I think, okay, we can strike my first question. But the 1.44, or the 1.4 that you were talking about, is based on the parking demand ratio, correct?
Correct. That's based on the parking demand. Yep.
And then if I read the letter correctly, that that peak parking demand basically is what you use to generate what the maximum number of spaces should be, because it says here that the total peak parking demand on the site, oops, strike that. ITE generally recommends that the peak parking demand not exceed 90% occupancy of the parking supply in order to avoid illegal parking. So basically, you take that 1.4 and you determine what it's 90% of,
Correct.
which is what, takes you
Which
to
brings
1.6?
us, yeah, that brings us, I think it was to 1.56, but was it 1.58? Yeah, and we rounded it up to 1.6.
And then Parking and Traffic asked you
To go a
do-
little bit higher based on the Linfield Commons site and what they're actually providing there at that site. So you can see on here that Linfield Commons, it's the second row down.
Yeah,
And what they actually provide is 1.59 parking spaces per unit. So they wanted us to basically take that and add in a factor of safety to it, and that gave us the 1.7.
now, I will note that this has been alluded as being your most significant data point, and yet there is no parking demand ratio for that property, right?
Correct. So we did not count the Linfield Commons site. We had, so patrons there or residents there are required to register their vehicles. So if you look at the number of registered vehicles, they have a ratio there of 1.37 registered vehicles per unit.
Okay,
The actual peak parking demand is likely a little bit less than that, because typically about 70% of residents are on site at any one time.
and again, is it fair to say that you relied upon the parking demand ratio to drive what the ultimate 1.6 number was?
Yeah, we relied on cumulatively all of this information, what we saw for registered vehicles at the other sites and what we actually counted at the other sites. But when you look at, so Folly Hill Meadows, Cherry Hill condos,
Yeah,
you can see that those were both 1.56. Those are, right in the same area have similar access to, well, lack of access to transit services, biking, walking as alternative means of access, and those are,
But if the 1.56 is the parking demand ratio for Folly Hill Meadows as well as Cherry Hill Meadows, and that's only 90% of what the actual parking ratio, the number of parking spaces should be, wouldn't that bring you up beyond the I can't do math in my head like my colleagues. I don't know what, 1.56 is 90% of what? 1.72?
1.72.
Okay, maybe that's where parking and traffic got it from. Okay, that's all I had, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Flannery. Other questions on this? Why don't we open this specific discussion about the parking to the public? Because I know you're anxious for us to resolve the special permit, right? So let's deal with just this. So anybody who wishes to be heard should step to the podium. And again, we're only addressing the issue right now of the parking and the special permit request with respect to the parking. So is there anybody who wishes to be heard?
Surprise. Hi, Patrick Knight, 4 Duck Pond Road, Beverly, Mass., next door to this particular development. You know, I've mentioned, you know, you're comparing Cherry Hill condominiums, parking spaces, you know, and we're obviously a totally different, you know, entity. We have a lot of people retired, a lot of people in Florida for the summer, for the winter and so forth. So it's very difficult to compare higher-end apartment buildings with sort of lower-end condos, you know, the amount of people parking there. A lot of people, I'm middle-aged there, so a lot of people are retired, not everybody's driving. So it's a different way of, different comparison is what I'm saying, apples and oranges. And we're looking, I've mentioned in the past, we're also looking at Folly Hill Apartments, and I'm sure I've sent in the past how they handle their snow emergencies. And what they do is they clear every single parking lot and park along Trask Lane. You know, I've sent in pictures in the past.
Mr. Knight, most respectfully, I'm gonna ask you to keep it, we're not gonna talk about the snow aspect. I appreciate
But
the fact
isn't that part of the parking
Yeah, well,
overall ratio?
I would say this. I think you've been here several times, and you are more than welcome to come every, we embrace it.
All right.
But you've also talked to us about the snow removal parking, and we understand your concerns.
Then I'll double off of that.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that, okay. But one of our issues also is, you know, you're talking assigned parking, so the amount of people that register for their parking, but I'm sure there's a number of people that aren't gonna wanna register to pay for their second car. So, as I say, our parking lot is the entrance to their parking lot. So they're just gonna park in our parking lot, and this will continue to happen. We're gonna be constantly taking their over parking. Snow, obviously, but that's a whole different story. But we're going to be taking or policing their property because all the people that don't wanna park or pay for the second car are gonna take this free parking lot, which is closer than their parking lot. Our parking lot, if you look, is closer, a third of the distance to the parking lot across the street, less than a third. So you could, like, you know, in their last presentation, pages 19, 20, 21, and 22, gives you all of this information. So that allows us to police, have this towed. How do we handle the overparking, the people that don't want to pay for the parking? And if I'm not mistaken, a number of the buildings have under the building parking spaces. Those are included in the total amount. And those are all paid parking spaces. That's not the second one. Those are all paid. So how many other, 70 of them, I think, that are pay only? Subtract that from your total, because those spaces are pay only and shouldn't be considered in your total spaces. I don't know how many of those are gonna be filled. half of them, how many people are gonna actually pay a lot of extra money to park underneath? So you really need to take that into consideration into your overall ratio.
Well, let me ask Mr. Mahoney, I hope you don't mind being put on the spot, Mr. Mahoney, but I've been told you manage some 13,000 units. What is your experience with respect to people's willingness to pay for covered parking?
People will pay for covered parking. It's a question of how much, at what price, capitalism. If we can't rent the spaces at $100, we'll drop it to 75, but we will rent the spaces. I'm very confident of that.
Can I ask a quick follow-up, Madam
Sure.
Manager? I've seen previously a cost estimate of roughly $31,000 per covered parking spot. I was assuming it's going to be a little bit more. You don't have to tell me exactly, but we're talking tens of thousands of dollars for each one of these spots that you're proposing to put in, right?
Yes.
Do you propose to have them empty?
No.
Thank you.
You're good, yeah, thanks.
He is good, isn't he?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd agree with it, but I just, your point's taken. I just don't see those spots being filled, and this, as I say, Site A, you're down to a ratio. If we're talking 1.7, Site A that really has 1.67. I know you have to look at it all as this big picture. Site B has 1.7 something, but, again, Site A is the part that I'm concerned with. That's the part, we don't have any protection. If the board can give us an answer how we're gonna handle overparking, it's going to happen. Like you said earlier, deliveries, if they don't find it here, they're gonna park here. People being what they're gonna do, they're gonna take the easiest, sleaziest way they can to do things. So we'll be the victim of that. I don't know how else to word it, but.
Somewhere, haven't you? What's that? Oh,
I
Sarah?
I guess my question would be, you've asked us a number of times for us to give you an answer of what you should do. I do want to, I don't think that's our role. Like, I don't think we can tell you what you should do. And so I was just going to ask Ken, who can tell them? Because they've asked us now numerous times, like, what should they do if? Is that a question between them and their new neighbors? Or is that a question between them and their city councilor or the city? I don't think it's a question for us. So.
I think Mr. Knight is framing it as a question to us as to what can the board do to prevent that?
So, and what I'm saying, I don't know if there is. So could you enlighten us if there's anything we could do to prevent it? Because I'm not aware of
That's what
anything.
conditions are for.
What conditions would be useful in that?
I don't have an answer to that.
I don't have a condition.
No.
We own buildings and parking lots that have abutting uses that people park and use our residence spaces, the opposite of what Patrick's talking about. A tow company will come through and tow cars that don't belong there at no cost to the owner of the property because they're getting paid by the person whose car they towed. So that's how we handle it with a tow truck.
But that is not a condition we would
No, I'm not
put.
suggesting
That
it's a
would be
condition.
an answer.
I'm suggesting it's an answer to the problem.
to the
I have an
problem.
answer to your question. The reason I'm pointing this towards the board is they've brought this up many times, that there's a $50,000 donation given towards parking and traffic. So I feel that puts the onus upon this board, or that's what I'm
The
asking.
$50,000 was not for parking and traffic. It was, it's
It was, $50,000 is offered, and it's not been determined yet, as a contribution to potentially either the Beverly shuttle or the Beverly Salem Skipper, which is a ride share on demand. So that's what that was in regard to.
Well, I did hear in the beginning it was presented as parking and traffic, but maybe that was a misquote. I played my tape back and saw it, but that's
so just to
okay.
clarify, that's not money we can decide how it would be spent. So I really appreciate your question, and like you've asked a few times, I want to make sure you get an answer because I just realized that I don't have the answer. So if
then
someone can.
my statement would be, if we can't find protection for us, is it advisable to reduce it? If you have enough spaces, then you don't have to find out later that you made a mistake. We're gonna be the ones that the mistake is made to. We're the ones that are going to suffer. We're ground zero. We're their driveway. Look at the map. Hopefully everybody's been out by this time, but I know you committed to it, so I'm hoping, but you can see we're their driveway.
Sure.
This was something that came up at the Parking and Traffic Commission.
Okay.
Mr. Knight had asked the same question there. And we have collected parking data, obviously, at Cherry Hill condos. And we did offer, as part of our post-occupancy monitoring study, to go back out and count Cherry Hill again, so that if their parking numbers go up as a result of, residents who are parking over there, then obviously we would take action to mitigate that as part of the post-occupancy monitoring. And depending on what the numbers show would determine, what we might do there.
Can I?
Please.
What do you mean by take action? What action would you take?
Whether that means we have to adjust the fees for the parking, so if people are parking over there because they don't want to pay the fees, we could adjust down the fees to get people parking on our site. It may be, sending out information to residents that may not be aware that that's not spaces they're supposed to be parking in. It could be installing signage that clearly indicates what it's for. So it could be a variety of different measures that could be taken if we find it's an issue.
And if the residents felt it was an issue before the time of your study, presumably those are all actions that you could take in response.
Absolutely, yeah, there are definitely things that could be done before that if there became an issue. So the first occupancy study would be done 6 months following issuance of an occupancy permit for the site. And then it would be done on an annual basis after that. So we shouldn't have to go more than 6 months without resolving the issue.
Thank you for repeating that. I know you told us that previously about the study, but it's helpful to hear those suggestions for what could be done.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Real quick, was it 6 months after occupancy permit was granted or 6 months at a certain percentage of
Like 6
occupancy?
months at a certain percentage, wasn't it?
I believe it's actually written as 6 months after initial occupancy. Yeah.
And a question for Mr. Knight. Is there any current signage on your Duck Pond Road parking spaces indicating that they are specifically for Cherry Hill residents only?
I believe so, Cherry Hill. If not, we'll have to put something up, obviously. Private property, yes.
Okay.
We're open to any, whatever we have to do, obviously, we're going to have to do, which is, again, what I'm pointing out. We have to come up with expenses and so forth, but that's the way life goes.
Is that something that Corcoran might be amenable to providing? Yep. Signage for the Duck Pond Road parking spaces that are some kind of signage that indicates that they're specifically for Cherry Hill residents only?
Yes.
Will they have somebody, I'm gonna ask if this, just throwing it out there, do you have somebody on parking duty that would monitor this for us? Somebody that could potentially report to us? I really am not trying to just throw in roadblocks. I just don't want our place to be abused. We have people that will fall if if they're parked in ice and snow and so forth.
We will have on-site staff 6 days a week, and we'll be able to make, direct communication with you or somebody from your community to raise concerns or say, this isn't our car, is it yours, or can you do something about this? So we'll be able to keep an open line of communication with our on-site staff.
That's part of what I've been asking this whole time, is having something like that.
Well, I think you need to, Mr. Knight, understand that they're not talking about, having somebody patrolling the parking, that sort of thing. It would be someone making a call to the on-staff person or persons, and then they in turn would deal with it in an appropriate manner.
I understand that, and along with that, I'm hoping that, as you mentioned with these 6 months reports, if there's so many violations or some sort of, overuse of it, that should be counted in these additional parking spaces that are future parking lots. If there's not enough parking and we're always being abused, then that's a sign that there's not enough parking.
Indeed. Yes, Ms. Flannery?
Madam Chair, just one question for whomever. Out of curiosity, what if somebody were parking at Duck Pond, Cherry Hill? How far would they be walking to their new apartment? What's the distance if they parked and walked to their home? Do we have an idea? I'm just curious.
That's the exact same question I was about to ask. I was about to ask if Joe Pesnola is on the call.
Thank you, Mr. Clausen. I'm just curious as to the distance.
Well, I thought someone said once there was a topo difference.
Yeah, that's why,
Well, that's what. For your peace of mind, that's why I'm asking, Mr. Knight, because I just don't see somebody with, I just,
No, you're talking from site A to site B.
No, we're
There's
talking-
a football, 3 football fields away, but as far as we are, we're 100 feet away and 15 feet elevation. 100 feet and 15 feet of elevation.
so you're, the
From our
the
parking
distance
lot
from,
to their parking lot
right,
is 15 feet of elevation.
yeah,
Ours
so
is
they're not going
15,
from here to
theirs is
there.
27.
They have to walk all the way, they would have to walk all the way up and around that way.
that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It's not,
I thought it was a 27-foot difference between the
It's
two.
a pretty significant grade break, which is why I was asking if Mr. Pesnola was on the call.
Our lot is listed, that spot is listed as 15 feet below grade, and that parking lot is listed as 17. I'm sorry, it's 10 feet higher than that.
With, along with the retaining walls that block any kind of access from anyone walking literally straight across into the buildings, they would have to walk around.
How far is
in
it
either direction.
to that parking space, to that parking space?
From space to space, I don't know if that matters. I think it would matter where space to building entrance.
that's the space to the building entrance.
Okay?
Yeah.
So then what's this, their parking space to the building, subtract that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's apples to, anyway. Well, that's my
Yeah.
point I'm trying to make, and I know the other point you'd rather me not talk about now, so it's at a different time, I'll respect.
I understand your concern about people using off-site parking spaces in lieu of on-site parking spaces. I would have more of concern of them occurring on this lot than,
Well, that's my other point,
Yeah.
I'm speaking of Cherry Hill.
Yeah.
Apple Village is even worse, I can't speak for them, but look at it, they're driving through there, that's 20 feet from their parking spaces. That will be abused. There's no question about that. I don't know if they have somebody monitoring them like the pain in the neck I am, but that's their parking lot. You could toss a stone easily. So that's what my point is. If you allow this reduction in parking spaces, there will be abuse. So that's why I'm asking this. I don't want an answer. I'm saying, should you do this? Will you folks be responsible for the abuse of it later on by allowing it? So that's what I'm trying to point out.
ask the question.
Wait, Mr. Knight, what is the abuse? I'm missing the
If they
point.
use our parking lot and we won't have enough parking spaces.
But you're
Or
alleging,
Apple Village doesn't have enough parking
I think Wayne
spaces.
wanted to ask a question too, yeah.
Okay, Wayne, did you have a question?
I don't,
Straight onto the walkway.
I have a
straight onto
comment.
The playground area, which does not.
Oh, there's
it's
Joe.
Joe.
Yeah. Go ahead, we're gonna edit mute Joe real quick.
I have a comment, if I may.
Please.
If the question is being asked of the board, what should we do or what can we do about interlopers or trespassers upon our parking lot? I don't feel authorized to answer that as the board member, but as a private resident, I can say that I own a private parking lot. I call it my driveway. Now, my street is a quarter of a mile from Brackenberry Beach, a desirable beach property. Frequently in summer, my street is lined both east and west with parking. Cars park there quite legally. and I don't object to that. They park on the street. However, if I were to come home someday and found that someone had parked in my driveway, my private lot, I would certainly react to that. As a citizen or as a resident, I would call a tow truck and have the car removed from my driveway and let the consequences be as they may. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. If there are trespassers or interlopers on your property, deal with it in the legally prescribed fashion. That's my opinion as a resident.
And given this situation as it is, I understand your point of view, but I'm saying that if you allow this amount of reduction, I feel it's going to happen. If you don't, then that's why you have your vote. And we will just have to suffer later on if it does happen. So that's, I don't know what else to say.
Well, we will
about it.
have the report, the study done, 6 months after occupancy?
Then- Okay. All right, well, I guess that's any
All right.
questions back from
Did
the
you-
board? I don't want to.
Did you want to ask that, Mr. Peg?
Joe.
Mr. Pesnola, are you still there?
I am here.
Can you speak to the grade change between the corner of building 1 and 2 and down to where the Cherry Hill condos are at the cul-de-sac, basically? What's the difference in elevation from the buildings down to there?
Yeah, just give me a moment to pull up the grading plans. We've been dealing with the layout plans and the snow storage plans, so it's been a while since I touched the grading plan. I'll bring that up and then I'll have an answer back to the board shortly.
Okay. Thank you.
And while you're in there, if it's doable, can you say the distance basically from the end of the Cherry Hill parking around the curve and basically to the main intersection?
Not as the crow flies, but as somebody would have to walk
Yes.
to
Correct.
get down there.
Correct.
Okay. Will do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. We appreciate, you reference yourself as, I think, a pain, and you never have to reference yourself as a pain.
Well-
You're here advocating for yourself, and you're advocating for your neighbors, and I think I speak for everyone here when I say we respect that.
Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it.
No, the fact that you're here.
I'll quickly go. Dimitri K, number 207 Duck Pond. I spoke at the last meeting. I was just gonna say for the first point, I think I'm on the same page with Derek. In terms of like the scope of the scale of the project, obviously it's a large project for Beverly. Quick thing about the donation, 50 grand. Again, doing the math real quickly, that's like 50 or 100 trips if you fill up a gas tank. So that's 50 grand isn't much at all. And again, the project down the road, the basin, they have $2 million in donations being done there. Quick question, does Massachusetts have any law about implementing electric parking spots or charging vehicle spots? Did we bring that up at all?
At our next meeting either, but I would say anyone listening, they should stay tuned.
Is that Joe?
But it's highly unlikely
I think
all
it's
that
Joe.
now that-
1 second.
I haven't heard about electric parking, and that's a big thing.
Last night at the city council meeting, we adopted the specialized stretch code. So yes, there will be EV spaces.
Do we know the number?
No, I do not. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay. Okay. And then the other thing was, when the lady was speaking there, but the 44 or so spaces, based on the 0.1% that needs to go up potentially, and, they could just put on a second level at the surface lot across the street from the intersection. Can they just do that? When they have to apply for 2 separate projects
Yeah.
with 2 different?
It would be a
blueprints?
modification to the site plan approval
Okay.
after the fact and a separate building permit for it as well.
So there'd be more, like, hearings for that, right?
It wouldn't, how we had two modifications earlier in the meeting tonight,
Okay.
it would be something like that where they would come in, prepare a plan, prepare a narrative saying what they're doing. The board would determine if it's a major or a minor modification to their site plan.
Okay,
If
right.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, again, that 50 grand, really not much there. And then, yeah, the EV, if we could get some info on that'd be great. And also just the electric impact, but that's a different conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Real quick, also, when it comes to electric vehicles, all of the buildings now have to be sprinklered to electric vehicle standards. So there's increased fire protection requirements.
Sprinklers for the parking spots?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So would this project be subject to that?
I'm sorry, I need your name and address,
Oh.
please.
Karen Johnson, 4 Duck Pond Road, number 206. Sorry about that. Would this project be subject to that electric vehicle requirement?
yes.
And are those spaces designated electric vehicle only? So they're not available for anyone else?
Correct.
Okay. Couple questions. Are all of the spaces that will be available for this development, are all those going to be paid spaces for people that live there, or just the garage ones?
That's something we handle over time, so definitely not out of the box, but it's something we'll.
May
adjust
or
over
may
time.
not be?
May or may not be.
It's not been specified, okay,
Yeah. It's
Okay.
adjust over time.
okay. So if they're all paid, that's even more people looking for free spaces, right? One thing. Another thing, you're talking about the elevation and distance from our lot to their apartments. Is your parking plan now to have that surface lot on Trask Lane as part of your parking inclusion?
That lot?
The one on Trask Lane that's the surface lot?
Yes.
Okay, so if you think that the distance from our lot to those apartments is something that someone's not going to walk, they have to walk 3 times that much to get to that surface lot on Trask Lane, just saying. That's part of their parking. So so they walk through our lot to get to that one, or they walk down another road to get there. So that's even further from their apartments, right?
They would not walk through your lot to get to that lot.
So they would,
walk up our
oh, they'd
driveway.
walk down your main entrance?
Yep.
Okay, so what's that distance?
We had that at the last hearing. 400 feet.
Okay,
And again, we think no one will park there because we think that's excess to the calculations and the data that we have. But we're building it because we've agreed to build it.
so that, but that is part of the 1.6
Yes,
or
yes,
7, that
7.
is part of that? Okay,
What the applicant believes is that even at the 1.7, they're going to have a excess of parking. It's up for the board to decide
right,
if they accept that.
right. I just was getting into the distance that they would have to walk to get there. Just thought that would be something to talk about. So that was that. Will you put any of your remedies for us in writing? Or just, is that just going to be like, if you say it in this meeting, then that means that it's part of it?
The board can condition the special permit on some of the things that were discussed tonight, like providing signage for the Cherry Hill spots being for Cherry Hill residents only. That can absolutely be, the special permit can be conditioned on that. If they don't do it, the board can revoke the special permit.
Okay. How many staff are you going to have during the day over there?
On a typical weekday, 6,
Okay,
a couple in the office, a couple maintenance staff.
okay, so they need parking too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just
Again,
saying.
those are all baked into the IT numbers.
Those
The
are in
apartment
there?
Complexes that have
Okay.
similar staff levels.
Okay. All right. I think I'm good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we go back to the stretch code and the EV spaces? Does that throw a little bit of a curveball into this whole thing? Is it based on a proportion of the number of spaces? How do, and I don't think I noted your answer when you said, I think someone asked if the EV spaces will be specifically designated only for that purpose.
They generally are. I don't know the answer to that. It's very new. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Go ahead, Mr. Mahoney.
I don't know what the stretch code requirement will be in terms of like reserving them. Our experience where we built, we have a lot of EV spaces and we provide them, like you said, while they're charging on a first come, first served basis, and then they're asked to move. In places where we have too many EV spaces, which we have in places that are required, and those spaces are open to the general users. And we track how many EV cars we have and make sure it's again, it's a management thing in these spaces.
So is it fair to say that this is something that will come out within in the 6-month study?
That would be fair to say, yeah.
Okay.
And I believe when we talked about, say, sustainability, we're already talking about building the passive house standard, correct? Right. And I don't know what the difference is between that and the specialized stretch code, but it's pretty. I'm sorry? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, is there anybody present here who wishes to be heard on this? Is there anybody who's joined us remotely? And Andrea Belanger has raised her hand. Can we bring her in on this? Ms. Belanger, are you there? Okay, I don't think she's there. Why don't we go to Joe? Whoop. There we go. And see what he has to say.
So I've got answers on the question. So it's from the front entrances of the two closest buildings, which again is at the intersection, the four-way intersection. That's where the doors are. That's where people would be coming out of. It's 400 feet as they would have to walk down and around the loop drive that comes into the Duck Pond cul-de-sac, 400 feet in distance. The elevation differential, the cul-de-sac at Duck Pond is at elevation 100. And we are proposing our entranceways up at that four-way intersection at about elevation 118. So it's about an 18-foot difference. Now the building closest to the Cherry Hill condos, the back face of that will be up at 118 to that upper level. The garage level will be below that, which will be obscured. You won't be able to see that garage level. But the other building that's to the right of that, that does have a lower level garage. That building will be kind of partially hidden, but down at 107.
Any questions for the gentleman? Okay. Anything else on the special permit issue from anybody here in the audience or anybody joining us remotely? I feel badly, Andrea Belanger, but I don't think she's there. I know. She's still there. Okay. I have a dumb question. Is this public hearing separate and distinct from the other?
Yes.
Okay, so we can close this public hearing as it relates to what? Oh, yes. Under the wire. Thank you.
I'm Brian Johnson. I live at Cherry Hill, Ford, Duck Pond Road, Unit 219. I know we're talking about parking, but I think it's not totally off the issue to talk about the ramp that the developers are planning to build a big hook there that I think is, if there was only 2 buildings to be built, they could run the ramp straight off of Duck Pond Road and shoot right up there. They wouldn't have the building there in the way. I think that ramp, I took a walk out there and looked at that land the other day. The land slopes from about the point where you would start to want to start the ramp. The land slopes gradually, but slopes. You're going to need a tremendous amount of fill to support that ramp going in that direction. And I just have a real problem with the amount of effort and the amount of destruction of trees and all that stuff that's going to take to build that ramp. If you had only 2 buildings, you could move the ramp would go straight up Duck Pond Road and turn in there, and you'd have a lot less effort to build that ramp. And I just think that my whole bias on this whole thing is that I think 4 buildings crammed into that small, tiny piece of land is overkill. I would hope that the owner of the property that thinks that he won't get his money's worth if we have 4 buildings there, doesn't he still own that? Does he own the part down on Lower Trask Lane also? Is that the same? The owner owns that same property? I think there's more.
This is all one contiguous property, actually.
Yeah, okay, so why not put the 4 buildings down there and leave only 2 in the upper part? I think the design of this place, the design they have doesn't work. And I really think that the board should, well, let me just say this about the board. I would hope that each member of the board would take a walk out there someday, if you haven't already done it, and if you have, great, and look at what the scene is there now and what they propose to do about it, and not make any decisions, either pro or con, on this development project until you have inspected the property as it now stands. I make that respectfully request to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Sure.
Real quickly, I just want to mention, it's kind of similar to what Patrick was saying, but the scale, again, if you go to that line with the 4 Duck Pond in Site A, where that ramp is, that retainer wall, again, it's 18, 20 feet or so above us. I was thinking about it, like the ceilings in here are 14 feet, so, add 6 feet above that, and then it's a 4 floor structure above that. 4 foot, or 4 floor, 3 floor, something like that. So then you're looking at another 30 feet above that, and it's literally 10 feet behind us. So this thing's behemoth, and again, to Brian's point, it's not really feasible to change up the plans right now, but it doesn't make sense the way it is, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board members, anything on the special permit issue? All right, is there any reason to keep this public hearing open? No. Okay, I would welcome a motion to close the public hearing on this on the matter of the special permit.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
that we close the public hearing on the special permit.
Thank you. Okay. Is there a second, please? Seconded by Mr. Gomes. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes. Oh, I said yes, sorry.
Yeah, no, I
was
was hearing the beep beeps and, okay, Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
Marcus Glynn?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Madam Chair, Ms. Belanger just rejoined. Do we want to give her a chance to speak? I know we were just.
You're allowed.
Read my mind. Sure, Ms. Belanger, did you wish to comment on the matter before the board?
Are you there? I'm sorry. I'm having a difficult time with a new iPad. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, thank you very much.
Could you
I just have
I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting you, but could you just let us know your address, please?
Sure, 12 Walcott Road. And again, I won't take up much of your time, as I know this is a really late entry to my comments.
That's okay.
So I downloaded the certificate from the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs on the DEIR report. And regarding the traffic, on page 2 of the report, down the bottom, it says the number of proposed parking spaces has decreased by 49 spaces from 932 to 883. However, the number of surface parking spaces will increase when compared to the ENF. So I don't understand. I don't understand that whole scenario. If it is increasing, where are they putting it, or is that part of the 1.6 proposal?
Yes. I think, I do appreciate that's confusing. The certificate is recounting the fact that the DEIR, the original draft, or actually the original ENF had a higher number of parking spaces originally, and that was reduced to line up with our original application to the planning board. It does not reflect the current request before the board by way of the special permit. We will be updating that as part of the FEIR if the board grants the relief.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's run that motion again. Let's start at the beginning. Yes.
Madam Chair, I move that we close the hearing on the special permit, number 201-25.
Microphones.
What? Microphones.
Ken's giving me a signal.
Oh, microphone. One more time for,
Apologies, Madam Chair, I move that the planning board close the public hearing on the special permit number 201-25, 0 Trask Lane.
okay, thank you. Second by Mr. Gomes. Discussion on the motion. We'll call the roll again. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
Marcus Glynn?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis?
Yes.
Wayne Miller?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes.
Just a reminder to the board that this is a special permit vote. It's a supermajority vote, so it requires 6 yes votes in order to carry.
I'm going to propose that we take a 5-minute break just to get everything ready for that motion. All right? That's all it is. Okay?
Yes.
So moved. Seconded by Gomes. So this is for a 5-10-minute break. It'll give us a chance to clean the paper, figure out what the motion should look like, that sort of thing, okay? Just want to make sure we've got everything lined up.
Back at 9:05?
Sure, 9:05. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
Marcus Glynn?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis? Wayne Miller?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. All right, so we'll be back at 9:05.
So move, Madam Chair.
Second by Gomes. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, we had a motion to resume, seconded by Gomes. Motion was by Ms. Flannery. Sarah Bartley,
Yes.
Ellen Flannery,
Yes.
Marcus Glenn,
Yes.
George Gomes,
Yes.
Nate Lewis.
Yes.
Wayne Miller,
Yes.
Derek Beckwith,
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson. Yes, okay, we're back. And what we are going to do now, I hope, is deal with the applicant's request for a special permit dealing with the parking. Mr. Beckwith, did you wish to offer a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the planning board grant the special permit number 201-25, Zero Trask Lane, court for applicant Corcoran Trask Lane LLC, for a ratio of 1.7 for parking with the following conditions. One, that the parking on this property shall be subject to a residential sticker program. Two, that a minimum of one parking place shall be provided and available per all residential units. Three, that a 5-year post-occupancy study will be conducted, including annual monitoring starting at 6 months from occupancy, typically 75%, as described in the application materials prepared by GPI. This requirement shall survive the post-occupancy study period, and there shall be no option to remove this condition. 4, that the existing developments on the site will be included in the post-occupancy monitoring study. 5, in meeting the 1.7 parking spaces per unit, the applicant will look at retaining parking that is more contiguous to the actual location of the housing on the site. 6, that the 4 designated parking places for the convenience store, contiguous to the convenience store, shall be properly signed during store hours, restricting parking to customers. 6.
That was 6.
Oh, that was 6. 7, that dedicated loading zones on the site are separate from the parking calculations. And 8, that appropriate signage directing residents of the subject property will direct residents of the subject property not to park at Cherry Hill or Apple Village properties.
Miller will second.
I'm sorry?
Miller, Wayne second.
Oh, Wayne seconded, okay. Comments from the board? Yes, George?
There's a question about the loading zone condition.
What's that?
A question about the loading zone condition. We don't, I guess there's no numbers on that. Like, how are we defining adequate loading zones?
Well, my understanding that the loading zones that are in the plan right now, at least, the 3, are not necessarily, they may be viewed as shared spaces.
Yeah.
So they're for loading or not, and this motion, and this is meant to make sure that they're designated just for loading, and they're not part of the 1.7.
Okay.
Other questions, comments?
I know that, sorry. Go ahead. You had a
Attorney
question.
Samasco?
If it's, I didn't know if you wanted to let other board members comment first, but I do have a couple of comments on the conditions.
Go ahead.
First, condition number 2, which came out of the parking and traffic recommendation. Board members may recall that I suggested that the applicant does not agree to that condition. Mentioned that on the record at the first public hearing. The reason being that while we appreciate, it makes absolute sense that one parking space shall be provided and available for every residential unit. It's not necessarily the case that every tenant will have a parking space, and we don't know what the future brings, and I think it is not typical to see the planning board's conditions regulate how a owner manages the parking, as long as they're providing sufficient parking per the zoning or the board's decision. So
you don't like the condition that specifies that there will be any minimum one parking space per unit?
correct. We don't think it's necessary. Obviously, we're providing 1.7 spaces per
I
unit.
think that condition was kind of a holdover from what a previous parking and traffic, or from what a parking and traffic commission member had tried to make a condition of that there be one surface parking space available for each unit, but not, and it turned into that language, which, as Attorney Damasco says, it's not needed.
Because, let's just flush this out a little bit. It's not needed because you're gonna have 1.7 per unit anyway, correct?
Correct.
Well, yeah, what is the implication of the language? Is the implication of the language is almost that there should be one spot designated for each apartment. And
Yeah.
that's very much not the
Right.
way that the
Right.
applicant intends to, manage the parking on site.
I'd offer, and, candidly, following the parking and traffic, recommendations to us, let's say that they're, as part of the average 1.7, it's, there are a whole bunch of people who have 2 spots, and you're doing an average to get to 1.7, that means there are gonna have to be some people who have less than 1 spot. So, to me, maybe there will be, but,
Well,
it seems to make sense that people aren't shut out from having a parking place, including the opportunity to have enough spaces so that someone can visit them.
I guess the problem with the condition is I don't understand the harm that it's meant to prevent. If somebody has a car and they come to the complex and there's no parking space available, they're not going to be able to rent that apartment. How could somebody rent an apartment where they don't have parking space for their car, unless they don't have a car, in which case they shouldn't have a parking space?
Did you discuss this with parking and traffic, and what did they say?
We raised it, and the condition was modified, I think, because as Mr. Clausen said, it came up in a different context, but it ended up remaining in the written conditions, which we don't see until after the fact.
So are you saying that it was included in the parking and traffic recommendation as a mistake?
I don't think it was a mistake. The language was modified from what it was originally proposed as.
And what was the language?
That there be one surface parking space available for each unit. So in other words, there be 440 parking spaces outside of the garages. So that at least there was one space available for each apartment that was not a rented parking space.
If the board feels strongly about this, we can live with it. I think the practical application is going to be very, very small. But we just don't, I don't typically see this kind of condition in the board's decisions, and that's where that objection is
Can I
coming
ask a
from.
question about it?
Of course, sir.
I don't understand, like, I guess I don't really understand what it accomplishes. Like, is it mandating that they hold a space for every, so they have 1.7. Are we mandating that they hold a space? So if a resident doesn't have a car, we're mandating that that space get like painted with a number and dedicated to, like, because if we're not gonna go all the way and say you must number your park, like, I guess I'm just not, what are we saying they need to do to satisfy it? Because if they're providing 1.7, it doesn't.
That's where I'm struggling with this too, because if they're not going to be assigned, the spaces aren't assigned.
Like, it
So-
works in my head, like, theoretically, but I
Yeah.
guess I just don't understand it practically. What would they do to satisfy it?
Yeah.
Perhaps we might ask of the applicant how they would like to word this reference to parking.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, can I provide a little bit more clarity on kind of how this came up? So when we were at Parking and Traffic Commission, we described that one of the parking strategies was going to be to charge for parking spaces within the garage, and that the surface parking spaces may be free. So the concern from one of the Parking and Traffic Commission members was that there might not be enough free parking for everyone. So the comment was really more related to having free parking. So they wanted to make sure that every single person could have access, or every unit could have access to one free parking space. In further discussion, obviously, with the applicant, they have said that the parking fee structure will adjust over time so that they make sure that they're balancing out the parking over the site. So if for some reason everyone wants to park out on the surface spaces, they will make the garage spaces free, or significantly reduce costs to make sure that the parking is balanced. So that's kind of where this condition came from originally and how it got developed, so.
Makes sense.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
So I guess I'd ask the applicant, so in the scenario where parking is full, and everything is good, and your capacity, and then a person moves out, and they had an assigned spot that they paid X amount for, that the next renter didn't necessarily have to, have an additional charge for, have to lease the space, or pay extra for the space. That seems to be the at least sort of part of the equation of what this condition was meant, and so that someone wouldn't be stuck in a position where they had to pay for parking. Yeah, I probably took it 10 feet further, but, I mean, I see the reason for it, but at the same time, this is a capitalist system where the applicant is, going to be deciding over time whether everyone is going to pay $25 a month to park there, and people in the garage are going to pay $150 a month, or whatever the numbers turn out to be next year or 10 years from now. It's a market question. And to the point that was raised before, when I raised it, I mean, I do see the argument, and don't know if it's in our place to direct that there be free spots. I don't think that's necessarily our call. I don't think it's personally great, but that's not my call. So I'd be okay with, that said, I'd be okay with taking that off if they're taking that out as a condition, if there's, if that's the will of unanimously of the board.
Let me ask you this, does this condition potentially conflict with the 1.7 parking spaces. So if it is somebody down the road is looking at this vote, looking at this decision, is it possible that this creates interpretation issues?
I think it does.
I do, I think it does.
So that was my concern with it. My concern was that I think without adding to it to be more clear about what is the purpose of that one per unit, I think you have an interpretation issue with the 1.7, because it's the same language but a different number. I was gonna say, I like the intent of making sure that people's costs are brought down, and I like the intent of making sure people have, it's a landlocked, property. I like the intent of making sure that people could, park. I think in practice, the reality is that if we force them to provide everyone free parking, they can raise the rent to cover the costs. To some degree, I don't think we're offering people any measure of protection by demanding that they offer. I appreciate the intent of it, and I actually think, given where this is, it's a really good intent. They'll just raise the rent, so to make up the difference. So I don't see why, I just don't think that over conditioning is necessarily the way to go, because I don't think we're getting people the protections we intend to get, but open to pushback on that.
Now I'm contradicting myself. There are a percentage of these that are gonna be affordable housing units. And with that idea in mind, either a reduced rate for parking or no charge for parking for people who are affordable.
You're getting into more site plan issues than special permit issues when speaking to things like that. We're just looking at making a reduction of the total number of spaces, not necessarily talking about how they manage their spaces.
Even when it comes to
Talking about the payment for making things under inclusionary housing or site plan.
I believe parking is included with the inclusionary units, isn't it? No? With the maximum rents? I can double check that, but.
Well, when we discuss the inclusionary housing, we can discuss that issue at that time.
Yes.
Okay, well, as long as we can.
Yes,
This doesn't negate that. Yeah.
We're not gonna discuss that issue. I just don't think it is appropriate under the special permit.
Yep, that's fair.
Okay, so do we want to amend the motion? Well, first of all, let's make sure that Attorney
I had one
Samasco
more.
doesn't have other concerns.
I just have one more. I think this one's easier. In condition number 3 on parking and traffic, I think the intent here was to have the monitoring begin 6 months after lease-up, which is typically 75% occupancy. I think that was the intent.
I think that's what I thought too.
Okay. So that can be cured by saying starting at 6 months from lease-up.
Which is defined as?
And in parentheses, defined as 75, at least 75% occupancy.
Lease up.
Yeah.
It's 75%.
So when they hit 75% of occupancy, 6 months after that date is when the monitoring would begin.
Do we need to say 75, typically 75%, or?
Yes, I would do that, just so it's clear.
Just to have a definition for what lease
Well,
up,
I'm
something.
saying typically or 75%.
No, 75%.
So we don't use the word typically then.
No, what we're doing is we're being specific and defining what
That's
lease up
right.
means. Because typically then opens yourself up to lack of precision.
That is all I have.
Okay, so,
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
I would offer 2 amendments to my motion.
Okay,
The first is to strike condition 2, that a minimum of 1 parking place shall be provided and available per all residential units. And to amend condition 3 to read that a 5-year post-occupancy study will be conducted, including annual monitoring, starting at 6 months from lease-up, which is 75% of occupancy, as described in the application materials prepared by GPI. This requirement shall survive the post-occupancy study period, and there shall be no option to remove this condition.
I don't know, can you read that last part? This shall survive the,
This requirement shall survive the post-occupancy study period, and there shall be no option to remove this condition.
I think that, I can speak to that. I think the Parking and Traffic Commission has had other cases where there has been post-monitoring, and the applicants have come back and requested that requirement to be dropped. So I think here, they're trying to say very explicitly, don't come back to us and ask that that be dropped.
okay, that's fine, thank you.
Second?
Second to the amended motion. Is there any further discussion on this amended motion? George?
Question. Special permit, don't we need to make findings? Do we do that first? I always forget.
Gosh, you're a genius.
Yeah. Sorry, gang.
You're earning your salary tonight.
Yeah. I invested it all, unfortunately, so it's.
Yeah. We are so focused on,
Got a chuckle away.
Guess what I would take it.
we must have the findings for,
They're in
okay.
the bottom. Okay, so,
Does someone want to talk about,
there's a motion, it's been seconded. What do we do, like, do you,
Suspend?
you're asking me?
Can we
we
do findings at
do
the
you,
same
did you
time?
do table that motion and then do, table that motion and then do findings in order to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I move that we table that motion for the time being.
okay. Is there a second? Second. By Ms. Flannery, she beat you, Wayne. Okay, I'm gonna call.
He always does.
So I'm gonna call the roll on the motion to table the motion.
Table the amended motion, just so we're clear.
The amended motions. Yes. Thank you. All right, Sarah Bartley,
Yes.
Ellen Flannery.
Yes.
Marcus Glenn,
Yes.
George Gomes.
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis. Wayne Miller,
Yes.
Derek Beckwith,
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. All right, so we've tabled the motion. Now we have to
Speak to the 6.
speak to the, we need to talk about the evidence or lack of for each one of those requirements. And then make a motion for findings.
Oh, we have to chat them up for a little
We have
while?
to, yes,
Speaking
for,
to number 1 is that the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed use, and that the character of the adjoining uses will not be adversely affected.
I'm happy to talk to this one.
Gomes? Talk
I've
it
been,
up,
I've
Mr.
been thinking a
Gomes.
lot about this issue overall, right? And I think a lot of people have a lot of concerns about the project as a whole. And I view this as damage limitation, and I understand there are some folks in the room who may not agree with that interpretation. But I think, we've talked a lot today about how, evidence shows that, evidence that is accepted around the country, including in peer communities and in similar sized apartment complexes, has shown that we generally two spots per unit would be over parking. And given that we're talking about a greenfield development, we're talking about developing the woods, I view this as damage limitation and mitigation. We're, decreasing the permeable site that we're going to be doing on, creating on the property. We're moving a little bit less earth. We're, hopefully locking in a little bit less car dependency, right? The concept of induced demand is a thing. If we've learned anything tonight, it's that people do value parking. And I think the idea of putting some sort of value on that parking is actually a good thing. And I think it's cognitive dissonance for some people sometimes, but I think these are all good things. In terms of, this particular site, I think a lot of us have real concerns about it as a site for housing, but that's the zoning. And so if we're gonna do it, right? If the zoning says that this is something they can do by right, let's try to improve it to the extent that we can. And I would view a reduction in the amount of parking in the site as, improving this proposal as a whole to the extent that we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number two, that no factual, oh, excuse me.
What? Oh, what?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sorry.
I just add, I think it's, as always, George, very, very well spoken. I also think that conditioning the special permit properly to be able to do some mitigation for the abutters is also an important part of it, and I think that we do attempt to do that in the motion itself.
Number two, that no factual evidence is found that property values in the district will be adversely affected by such use.
There's been no evidence presented by, certainly not the applicant or by any participant, that changing the parking ratio or granting the special permit will cause a decrease in property values.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number three, that no undue traffic and no nuisance or unreasonable hazard will result.
I think again on this one, we're dealing with a overall proposal that people have misgivings about, but I do believe that, decreasing the amount of parking on the site to the extent that it does have an impact on, the number of vehicles that will be on site is going to mitigate to some extent those nuisances, that traffic.
Keep going. Did you want to add?
Yeah, ironically, I'm going to be voting against the motion. I just made the motion to make sure the conditions were there, and also so that it's the best it can be. But it is an interesting point in terms of limiting number of parking, probably is good if logistically it works out that the numbers will work and that there's enough room for loading, unloading, handicapped, all of those things that I haven't seen the answers to yet, which is primarily why I'd vote against it. But overall, reducing the number of cars on the site is a good thing.
Number four, that adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation and maintenance of the proposed use.
I think that the applicant has shown that whether the ratio was at 2 or the ratio was at 1.7, that there's adequate services that will be provided to the site.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number five, that there are no valid objections from abutting property owners based on demonstrable fact.
I think there's been a lot of speculation about human behavior, and I think the facts that we have been presented are in the various reports, including the one that we've received from our own city's peer reviewer.
I would add that there are actions that that will be part of the process to review whether it's working or not. And so that gives me confidence that if there's demonstrable fact, there is a remedy.
I think that's a great point, Sarah. I think that the problems that have been discussed tonight are hypothetical at this point in time, and we won't know if they're actually demonstrable facts until, frankly, the study goes out once they hit 75% occupancy. So I think the demonstrable part of it hasn't been shown.
But there is a tool that will be used
And
that can validate these things beyond what we can do sitting in these chairs tonight, and that gives me confidence.
Right. There's mechanisms in place to hopefully, should it end up being a demonstrable fact, there are remedies hopefully in place that will help to mitigate that.
And the final and sixth finding is that adequate and appropriate city services are or will be available for the proposed use.
again, I think it's the same thing, whether the ratio was 2 or if the ratio was 1.7. The applicant has shown that through their willingness, their staff on site, the ability to get emergency services in there, things like that, it's not going to be affected by a change in the ratio.
Yeah, I also think, I mean, if this were a special permit for housing on the site overall, then there might be concerns, right? But
Right.
you are, I mean, you're talking about,
The special permit.
yeah.
Okay. So do I move to
Make those findings,
Accept the findings?
make the,
I move to make the findings for the special permit number 201-25 at 0 Trask Lane for Corcoran Trask Lane LLC.
for the reasons presented in the discussions with the board, that these,
yeah.
unless
Unless you want to read them all again, basically phrase it the way that make the findings as were discussed.
you're confused.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm,
Unless you want to make the motion as make the following findings and read 1 through 6 again.
Right,
Well, that's
that's
what
what
we've
I
done
would
in the
suggest.
past.
Yeah.
And
that's-
just throw in there that based upon the discussion and the evidence presented, the board finds that.
Yeah.
That make sense?
yes.
Okay.
Basically, no,
I move that we make the following findings based on the evidence presented by the board
and I'll start
and the discussions of the board.
with the following.
Yep,
Number 1, that the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed use, and that the character of adjoining uses will not be adversely affected. Number 2, that no factual evidence is found that property values in the district will be adversely affected by such use. Number 3, that no undue traffic and no nuisance or unreasonable hazard will result. Number 4, that adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation and maintenance of the proposed use. Number 5, that there are no valid objections from abutting property owners based on demonstrable fact. And number 6, that adequate and appropriate city services are or will be available for the proposed use.
thank you, Ms. Flannery. Is there a second on the motion?
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Gomes. Again, a reminder that this specific motion is just that we're making these findings. Okay, so it's not a specific vote on granting the special permit. It's just that we are voting that we're making these findings. Okay, with that in mind, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley,
Yes.
Ellen Flannery,
Yes.
Marcus Glynn,
Yes.
George Gomes,
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis,
Yes.
Wayne Miller.
You're muted, Wayne?
Did we lose him?
He's there. He was on camera before.
Camera's off. This is gonna be unusual, but I'm gonna call him.
Yeah, you calling him too, or? Okay.
No answer. I would count that as an abstain. I don't know, I would, no vote, it would be a no vote, like, not a no, like, not voting no, it's just a no vote.
He's abstaining from the
I
vote.
guess, yeah, that's, he's not there, that he didn't pick up.
Is this a supermajority?
Yep.
Yep.
How many votes are needed for that?
6.
6.
Can we request a short recess to discuss
Of
whether we want
course.
to move forward? And I don't know whether the board would entertain the option of a straw vote under the circumstances?
I have made my, huh? I understand the pickle you're in.
Yes.
I have never been a fan of straw votes. There's just something about them that it doesn't feel right to me. Why don't, you want the recess?
Yes, please.
Okay, can we move to
So
recess?
move to recess?
All right, we'll resume it,
For the recess, yeah.
To recess. To recess, do we have a second?
I know, that's what I was,
Sorry, Ellen looks like she's getting up.
No, I'm just raising my hand. Do you want me to specify time, Madam Chair?
wait, I think, do we have to move to table the vote so that we can then vote for the, do we have to? All
No,
right,
no, because we're still in the middle of,
the discussion?
well, we're literally in the middle of the vote, and
Oh, we are in the middle of that vote, aren't we?
We are in the
Yeah.
middle of it, yeah. Can we recess?
We can't, we're in the middle of the,
we're in the middle of accepting the findings.
okay, then let's,
It looks like that's gonna go through without Mr. Miller.
Do you want to finish the
Yeah.
on the findings, and then we can adjourn to understand?
where did I leave off? On the
You're on Wayne Miller,
Wayne Miller, okay.
so who would be next?
All right, so Miller is an abstain on the findings, correct? Okay.
So he was the last one, right?
No, then
okay.
Beckwith and Hutchinson.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, Beckwith,
No.
Hutchinson, yes.
So findings are good.
So findings are good. You want,
2 or 3 minutes?
yeah, of course. So can we, can I have a motion to recess for, till 9:50? Yeah,
So move, Madam Chair?
okay. All in favor?
And are you going to try
Actually,
to
I can't,
rouse him?
actually, let me, you guys, you can't go.
No.
We have to vote on
Please
the,
vote on the motion to,
Motion
Sarah
to adjourn.
Bartley,
yes.
Flannery,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Gomes, Lewis, Miller. He's abstained, all right. Beckwith,
Yes.
Hutchinson, yes. Okay, so we are in recess right now. Yep, so can we have a motion to
Hello.
return? Okay, so,
Second.
yep, all right, so we have a motion to return to our meeting. Sarah Bartley? Yes. Ellen Flannery? Marcus Glenn? George Gomes?
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis? Wayne Miller?
Yes.
Woo! Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Okay. Now, let's see, where the heck are we? We've tabled the motion, right?
As amended.
As amended.
Yes, I made it that far.
Okay. So is there any further discussion on, this is the motion to either grant or deny the special permit with all the conditions that we talked about, correct? Make sure everybody's on the same page, right?
As amended, yeah.
As amended, right. Is there any further discussion by members of the board?
Do we need to move to untable? Okay,
Oh, I have no idea.
probably, right?
I am
I
not a
was-
Robert's rules of,
I'm actually gonna make that motion anyway.
Yeah.
It's no harm, no foul, I think.
Okay.
But after, to see whether or not there's any more discussion.
okay. So why don't you offer your motion? Holy moly.
If members don't, want to continue the discussion, then I move to untable the motion as amended, on the special permit.
Second.
Okay. Sarah Bartley? Yes. Ellen Flannery? Yes. Marcus Glenn? Yes. George Gomes?
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis? Yes. Wayne Miller?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson? Yes. Okay. One last time, anything anybody wants to offer, question, comment on the motion? Yes.
Madam Chair, I just say, just as a bit of explanation for people who may wonder when it comes around to me and I vote no, that I did raise concerns about wanting to see the plan much more flushed out in terms of several issues, loading, the actual numbers and, you know, things like that, and ride share space, delivery space. So I'm not fully comfortable voting yes, so I plan on voting no. I do think that the motion offers protection to the abutters. I just wish that the plan was in a different place, that rather than saying, give us the magic formula of 1.7 and then we'll design it, I'd rather have seen the fully flushed out plan first. That's my preference, and that's why I'm voting the way I will be.
Okay. Anything else before we vote?
Madam Chair, sorry.
George?
Oh, George?
I think I just, I fully understand where the neighbors are coming from, and I understand you guys are upset, and I am trying in my head to divorce the merits of this issue from the broader projects. And we've kind of talked about a lot of concerns with the broader project, and we'll talk about that down the line, I'm sure. I do come back to the data we've been presented. This is one of the reasons I got involved in planning. Like, I'm really interested in transportation. I'm really interested in, trying to do this better. And, this is something that has been a problem in this country for a really long time, is overparking. And I think this is getting us moving in slightly the right direction. And I understand that people are inclined to think the worst of everybody. And, I hope it doesn't come to that. And, I think Sarah made a couple really good points earlier about, we have done as much as I think we reasonably can to try to flesh out what some of those, remedies are, and, how we can ameliorate these issues as well. But at the end of the day, right, this is a by right project, and we're doing our best to improve it. So that's why I'm a yes.
Thank you, George. Anyone else? Sarah?
I'm happy to offer that parking ratios end up being what drives the way people design, build, do this development work. And I don't think that's great. And I know it's true. Like, I know you end up making decisions about your buildings based on the rules we set about parking ratios. And I don't think that that's how we should do things, but I recognize it is how these things are done. And so therefore, I think I totally respect, Derek, the choice that you've described. And it doesn't seem as backwards to me in terms of the process, because it's the way these things are being done, and appreciate that we are doing our best to try to make sure there's a mechanism for review and mitigation. So I feel comfortable with it. But I don't think it's the way we should develop housing. So I can relate.
Anyone else?
Well, I'll just throw in my 2 cents, I guess, that, the way that we should do things is the way that the special stretch code was adopted by the council. And I think it affords us protections that we could not otherwise afford ourselves. And I just want to credit the board for that decision. And that's all I have to say about that.
All righty then, thank you. Anybody else? I shall call the roll then. Sarah Bartley.
Yes.
Ellen Flannery.
Yes.
Marcus Glynn. Yes. George Gomes.
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis.
Yes.
Wayne Miller.
Yes.
Derek Beckwith.
No.
Ellen Hutchinson. Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody, for the work this evening and always.
Thank you.
We will address your concerns with the next set of plans.
Thank you.
I had no expectation that that would take that long, but I mean, it was good. It's always good that we do the process properly. We do have somebody who's with us to present tonight, right?
Yeah, that being said, are we continue, or do you want to keep going with, it's still open for this public hearing? We closed the special permit
Well,
public
I'm
hearing, but the site plan
concerned
public hearing
because-
is still open.
What's that?
The site plan public hearing is still open currently.
Right, but you have a gentleman here to present tonight, right?
Well, it's the city's
Our
peer
our
reviewer.
peer reviewer is online on the meeting right now, because the applicant had planned to start discussing traffic, but it,
It's really up
Is
to
the peer reviewer
board.
going to make a presentation?
no.
Well,
Right,
I think
correct?
he
I don't know, actually. Yeah.
I
Mr.
think
Dirk, are
he
you there?
is prepared to give a summary of his findings with respect to the peer review. But he's on the line and he can correct me if I'm wrong.
So good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. I think the expectation that we had tonight in talking with the applicant's traffic engineer was they were going to make a presentation to you about their project, and I was going to provide to you a summary of my findings with respect to the analyses that the applicant had submitted. I'm certainly happy to give the board kind of an update as to where we are in our peer review. I'm not sure, has the board heard a full presentation from the applicant on their transportation analysis?
The board probably doesn't remember this. It was the very first hearing. There was an overview of the traffic. I do want to make clear, the applicant, the team understands that the board, this has been a long evening, and we really would defer to your wishes as to whether you want to continue this to another evening or hear from, we have a really brief overview that Rebecca Brown is prepared to give, and then we were going to lead into Mr. Dirk to explain his position.
Here's the thing, I strongly believe that we should not go past 10:30. I just don't think it's fair to any board member. I don't necessarily think it's fair to your team. I don't think it's fair to people who are here and watching. So given that, and given the fact that we do have a couple of other items, I will defer to what my colleagues want. Do you want them to start something, or should we just start fresh at our next meeting?
Which would be April 30th.
Yes.
The only other thing on the agenda tonight was to set a public hearing and then some minutes, right?
Correct.
Is that-
Right.
So that's
And there is
So,
a.
I mean, if you want to be out and,
There's one thing that was not on the agenda that we also would discuss, but it's quick. It's one of those 48-hour things that didn't get.
Why don't we then defer, do the other business first and defer our decision whether to have this presentation until we do the other items?
Well, let me ask this. Ms. Brown, how long is your presentation?
Very, very quick.
But it's so important. I mean, I don't want you to race through it. And Attorney Samasco brought up a great point, which is the last time we talked about traffic was, what, months ago?
Madam
Yes.
Chair? Madam Chair, I think that there are three components to it, really. There's the presentation from the applicant. There's an update from our peer reviewer, and then there are the different questions and, you know, getting into, you know, more of the weeds in terms of traffic and, you know, intersections and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And then there's hearing from the public. So I think that it's longer than, let's see if we can get. No, and so I think it makes more sense to have it as its own unit, so to speak, rather than splitting it over a couple of different meetings. So I would opt to hold off on diving into it. I understand that this is, you know, vitally important for us to be able to move through it. I just think it'll be, traffic is a hugely important issue that the applicant has put lots of money and time into preparing. Our peer reviewer has, and, you know, for the citizens. So I think it's good for us to put it to its own piece in the next agenda, and then after that, maybe we determine whether or not we need to do an extra meeting.
I was just about to say, do we need a special meeting just
You
for?
know, maybe we look at that, but in the process, you know, we're only 3 weeks away from doing the next discussion.
Okay, I think, thank you for that. I always need the reasonableness of my colleagues to put me on the right path, so I appreciate that. So I do think it makes sense to, given the significance of the issue, to not have it so chopped up like I was thinking.
Yeah, to begin now, and.
Right.
It's April 30th, it's about 3 weeks away.
Okay, so,
Would you like this to be continued, Madam Chair?
yes, I would.
Could we continue the site plan review number 160?
Microphone.
Sorry, guys.
Mhm.
Move to continue the site plan review number 168-24 for Corcoran Trask Lane LLC to April 30th.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley? Yes. Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
Marcus Glynn? Yes. George Gomes?
yes.
Nathaniel Lewis? Yes. Wayne Miller?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Tell Mr. Dirk that we're sorry that we made him show up.
Madam Chair, let's hope he's comfortable wherever he is.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not a problem at all. I appreciate
All right,
that.
thank you. I know. Okay, can we,
I think we have to close public. Do you want to rejoin
yeah,
the meeting?
that's what I'm getting at.
I'm so confused now.
Can, I have a motion, please, to reconvene our meeting, to come out of public hearings and reconvene our meeting.
So moved, Madam Chair?
Seconded by Beckwith. I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley. Flannery.
Yes.
Marcus Glynn. George Gomes.
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis.
Yes.
Wayne Miller.
Yes.
Derek Beckwith.
Yep.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. All right, thank you. Okay, this one should be relatively easy. We need to set a public hearing for site plan review number 169-25 for the properties located at 20 and 22 Oak Street. The applicants are Stavry Bracco and Clarenta Bracco. Applicant to replace 2 existing commercial buildings currently containing 8 business units with 1 townhouse-style 2-family building. Do we want to put this, what does April 30th look like for us?
It looks like Trask Lane.
Okay.
And,
Stanley, would you?
yeah, Trask Lane and Stanley Street, the OSRD, we have this site visit this Saturday morning, also remember at 9 AM for that.
Stanley Street?
Yeah.
9 o'clock Saturday morning.
That's right, I have it on my calendar.
So it would be the
Do you want May?
public comment period for selecting the preferred plan for 38 Stanley
On April 30th?
on April
Mr.
30th.
Clausen?
And Trask Lane.
Okay.
And
Do you want May 21?
I don't, because I think there's gonna be timing issue based on when they submitted their application. I think it has to be within a set number of days, and I think that's too far out.
All right, well then let's put this on for April 30th.
30th. Okay.
So I'd welcome a motion.
Set the plan, move to set the public hearing for April 30th for the site plan review number 169-25.
Is there a second, please? Seconded by Mr. Beckwith. We'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley.
Yes.
Ellen Flannery.
Yes?
Marcus Glenn. Yes. George Gomes.
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis.
Yes.
Wayne Miller.
Yes.
Derek Beckwith.
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson, yes. Thank you. We have a set of minutes for March 12th. Has everyone had the opportunity to review? Are there any deletions, additions, changes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Mr. Clausen, did you look, please? Yeah, I know that there's a number of scrivener's, but I had a couple of questions.
Go for 'em. I don't have a copy, but
Right
I have it here somewhere.
You want these?
right here. It's the same note that.
Yep,
that
I think
Ellen-
they're over there.
No, that's okay.
It's just page 1, Mr. Clausen,
Yep.
is my question. Page 1 and page 2.
Okay. The special permit was a good suggestion, with this, suggestion's a correct word.
Is it as opposed to a determination?
recommendation.
And the recommended approval with a suggestion.
They changed it to 1.7.
Yeah, maybe, suggestion might be a little too weak.
That's why I questioned it. Is it a determination?
How about a
perhaps?
recommendation?
Or
Recommendation.
determination?
I think it's just determination.
Yeah, I do, because he determined it to be a
All right.
1.7.
Fair enough?
And then in number 87, Mr. Clausen, I didn't know.
Local law sites saw low rates for, the local sites saw low rates for parking. This could be. That's in reference to the Folly Hill, Apple Village, Cherry Hill numbers, which,
I was just asking. if
yep,
it's
I think
vague.
it's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
It needed something
If there's,
specific.
yeah, I think it's okay.
And the others were scrivener's.
Yep.
Madam Chair, if you noted them?
I have noted them. All right, I'd welcome a motion on this, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that the minutes for the meeting on March 12th, 2025 be accepted as, be approved as amended.
Is there a second, please? Oh, we'll give it to Marcus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seconded by Mr. Glenn. All right, any comments, questions? Nope, I'll call the roll. Sarah Bartley?
Yes.
Ellen Flannery?
Yes.
Marcus Glenn?
Yes.
George Gomes?
Yes.
Nathaniel Lewis?
Yes.
Wayne Miller?
Yes.
Derek Beckwith?
Yes.
Ellen Hutchinson? Yes, thank you. All right, you have an additional item for us?
Yes, Mr. Lopez Hernandez, are you there?
Yes, I am.
We're about to discuss the joint public hearing. This was not on our agenda. This was set by city council on Monday night. So it's within 48 hours. So it's not on our agenda. This is something that the chair of the board could not reasonably anticipate.
Understood.
There is a joint public hearing scheduled for May 5th at 7:45.
For what?
Mr. Lopez Hernandez.
Sure, I can give a few words. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. I'm Ibrahim Lopez Hernandez with the Sustainability Office. This is in relation to an update to the city's floodplain ordinance district. FEMA has released a new set of maps for floodplains, and this happens from time to time. And new requirements for municipalities experiencing these new maps are required to update their zoning ordinances. Specifically, one of the key takeaways is identifying a floodplain administrator and other types of changes in the zoning code. So we have a deadline of July 8th for Beverly and some other 70 municipalities to comply with these so that we can maintain participation within the National Flood Insurance Program. Our reasoning is that the best way forward to not have as many dates and be within that time frame of July 8th is setting a joint public hearing between the City Council and the Planning Board. Happy to answer any questions.
What exactly will we be doing at this public hearing?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
Probably not much, because the floodplain ordinance is part of the zoning ordinance. It's a zoning ordinance change, so it goes through the process of that any other zoning ordinance change would, which means there's a joint public hearing with the city council, and the planning board has a public hearing for it, makes a recommendation to city council. That public hearing can continue, I believe it can continue the same night if you wanted to move it to the conference room, and don't need to continue it
So
past
again, what
that.
exactly will we be doing that night?
Will we be adopting amendments?
So a question for me, so we will be preparing a series of slides and presentations just to give an overview of what are the changes that are going to be happening. And basically it's just informing the planning board and giving an overview of how permitting would function under this new language. A lot of this language and these new set of requirements are already being shared to municipalities as a template from the Massachusetts Department of Conservation Resources. They're the ones who are in charge of maintaining the whole Commonwealth within FEMA regulations and maintain all of the municipalities in line so that they can keep participating. So it's just giving a brief overview of how things would look like. But all of this is pretty much boilerplate in terms of the state saying to its municipalities, this is the language that you need to take in order for keep participating within the program and homeowners being able to access flood insurance.
Okay, thank you. So what do you need from us?
Nothing, it's just,
Enter on our calendars that we have a joint public hearing?
yeah.
Monday evening?
Sometimes we vote to set the public hearing, but it's not necessary because
Yeah.
it's set by the city council.
Okay.
Is it in-person mandatory that we attend?
I will find out.
Okay, just let us know so we can put it on our calendars.
It's May 5th, but I don't know it's 7:45 is what it,
7:45?
yeah.
Kenna, I will just tell you now, I cannot go.
Right.
So I just, in terms of worrying about quorum and whatnot.
Okay. I think that's it.
Can I also just inform you, I will not be present Saturday morning.
Okay.
And neither will I.
If anybody is not able to make those site visits, they're not mandatory. There's no quorum required.
I did when we had one for,
Yeah, you went separate.
Yeah, I went separate.
Yeah.
I let Mr. Griffin know.
Yep.
And he actually came and was able to answer questions,
Okay.
but it wasn't mandatory. I didn't say I
Yeah.
needed him to come.
Okay.
But if there's a time that maybe you and I both wanted to go, I mean,
Yeah,
we wouldn't be a quorum.
yeah, that's true.
I would recommend against doing that because that could be an open meeting violation law, like a subcommittee kind of thing.
Even
It's-
two people?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's just it's a gray area that's,
yeah. Is it,
We don't talk, though. I mean, you know, we just.
yeah, and I'm okay doing a self-guided,
Yeah.
I've done that. I did that
Yep.
at this other site.
yep.
We were at the site, I was at the site before when it was,
The A&R request
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
or a request from the waiver of the
Yeah.
OSRD to create A&R lots, yeah,
Live on Saturday, right?
correct.
Bring the baby.
there you go. Oh, I'll be out. of
Okay,
town.
so we've got that. Anything else?
What else is there, is that on an agenda,
I
anything?
think that's it.
I think that's it.
Okay, motion. Huh?
I guess the only thing would be is to start considering if a special meeting would be required for Trask Lane.
Special meeting?
Yeah, a separate meeting from the regularly scheduled meetings.
Be
like-
able to finally catch up and wrap it up.
Yeah, I've been wondering, like, the wisdom of drawing these out to meeting over meeting. It feels like we're doing a fair amount of, like, backtracking and talking about things we've already talked about. And I understand there's new information, but it feels like every time we do it, it then opens up. I don't mind hearing from people, but I think people feel like they have to come and speak in every meeting. If we did one longer, you'd hear, it just feels like it would be more efficient use of time.
Well, it's some, yeah, Madam Chair?
Yes.
At some point, they're gonna come before us with an updated proposal. And so
Yeah.
it seems to me that that might be.
That may be the time to do it.
The meeting to actually have it be focused on, okay, here are all the changes you're presenting, why, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, this is also
Just focus on that.
this is also one of two stretches of the year where we're in a 3-week cycle rather than a 4-week cycle. So we have April 30th, and then and then it's back to,
I'm not gonna be here May 21st.
I'm not supposed to be here, but I
we
may.
will discuss.
Is that a Tuesday or a Wednesday?
That's your last, are you done with classes by then?
No, I think that the next round.
21st is a Wednesday.
Okay.
We'll make it work. I'm not worried about
21st is a Wednesday, but to your point,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm here.
to your point though.
Would you be here that Tuesday?
No.
How many meetings can one not be attending?
One, she's already, yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I have to be in New London, my niece is graduating from the Coast Guard Academy, and I'm not missing that graduation.
Okay, we will, that's,
From a published
That's-
date too, Ken, does that make?
that's over a month away. We can work on rescheduling that meeting possibly.
All right.
Because of the public hearing.
I'm sorry, I just can't.
We haven't set a
I
public
can't.
hearing for May 21st yet at all. Yep,
All right.
Or, yeah, not have the public hearing.
It's just one meeting.
yep. So that's something I'll start talking to people about. Rescheduling May.
Who's ever available, and whatever nights and days are available
I mean,
in May.
do you have your class schedule yet? For,
No. I'll make it work. You don't worry about me.
okay.
Look at him.
Because I think the only reason we could, I continued having the meeting being on May and Wednesdays was in case the state didn't continue the hybrid meeting so that Concom could have
That's right.
a room in case they needed it.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
it goes back to Tuesdays, I think, starting in June.
Yeah, with George's schedule.
I don't know if I have anything synchronous next semester. I will make it work. I appreciate everyone, adjusting for me, but I will make it work.
Anytime. You're worth your weight in gold.
Yes.
It's true.
Okay,
So that's it.
anything
That's it.
else?
That's it.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All right, I'm just gonna, I don't have to do it alphabetically, do I?
No, motion adjourned, you don't actually technically have to vote on.
All right, well then, we're out of here.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bill
you.
Swift. Thanks, Bill.